The world of the immortals. In the starry sky above the city floated a certain man with a sword. Apparently he was a protector. It had been 3,000 years. A guy with yellow eyes, long brown hair, and a blue robe was looking at something in the air. It was pink in color, like some kind of rift in space. The guy bared his sword and introduced himself. His name was Yun King Yan. By opening this space, he would finally be able to return home. The guy enthusiastically swung his sword and struck this rift at a run. Bright energy exploded near him. The sword stabbed into the rift, and the boy was able to penetrate. Everything suddenly sparkled. Some girls noticed that the aura of the Eastern Emperor was gone. They seemed to be overwhelmed by this fact. Suddenly something hit Yun King Yan's back. His whole body was struck by red and black lightning. These were his memories from 2,000 years ago. At that time, he was young and was regularly bullied. After being in the immortal world for 3,000 years, until he became an immortal emperor and having a huge number of godlike disciples, Yun King Yan must return and atone for the mistakes of his youth. And even if the boy loses all his cultivation, he must return to his family and make amends for all the suffering he faced. Thinking about this, Yun King Yan cut those black and red lightning bolts with his sword. Dynasty, Tanyuan, the city of Tanyuan. Traditional Chinese palace, a waterfall, and 2 huge guard posts. There were 2 young men standing near the gate, guarding it. One guy was standing leaning against the gate, and the other was squatting on the steps. At the same time, 3 men in red uniforms were beating someone up and saying that without Yun King Yan at their side, they meant nothing. They are garbage. Laughing, people were kicking the man. The girls watching were discussing that the Lin family had become more and more self-righteous in the past few years. And Lin Jian is the second strongest person in Tanyu City. The girl with the green hair said with regret that King Yan had disappeared. After all, Lin Jianyu is no match for King Yan's genius. The man in the red uniform in turn replied that even if he came back, he would be able to overpower him and also step on, as well as the guy he was beating at the moment. Just as suddenly, there were some sounds. Everyone raised their heads in anticipation. There was an unusual blue light. It was Yun King Yan. He flew with a shout. What is this? Finally, he came back and landed so that his foot was in the face of one of the men in the red uniform. The man was outraged. He asked who the man was and what right he had to step on his face. The man was dumbfounded. Could this really be the same King Yan? The guy in turn proudly declared that it was true. He was the King Yan. Having said that, he threw the man to the ground. An ant like him didn't deserve to say his name. Another blow followed. It was so strong that it knocked out the man's tooth. King Yan chuckled that the young man could not withstand even one of his blows, which meant it was a waste of time. The kick was so strong that the man left a trail of what looked like blasted earth behind him. He was thrown back a great distance. The crowd was stunned. Could it be that the same Yun King Yan was back? If he was the 5th genius 3 years ago, he must be much stronger now than before. Someone in the crowd asked to pay attention to the fact that Lin Jian was able to provoke King Yan's cousin, and now they would be crushed by him. The 2 men in red uniforms took their comrade by the arms and staggered away. But despite the shame, they kept shouting out to Yun King Yang that they were not the slightest bit afraid of him. He should wait, because after reporting what had happened, Lin Shao King Yang would get his revenge. When King Yan left, the Yun family was the one family in Tanyu City, and it seems that in just 3 years, Tanyu had changed a lot. The guy who got beaten up, King Yan asked, wouldn't happen to be his cousin. Turning around, King Yan recognized him. It was his cousin. He shouted out that he was back. King Yan lowered himself to his relative and gave him a little hug. The cousin asked if he was okay after 3 years. The guy was shaking all over. King Yan was furious. He hugged his cousin and inquired, was it really the Lin family's business that was going on? The man, smiling, replied that, unfortunately, he could not tell. Suddenly, a man with a mustache and in frontal attire called out to King Yan. Was it really him? He finally came back. It had been so long. The man thought King Yan was dead. The boy apologized to his uncle. After all, he hadn't sent him any news and made him worry. Uncle smiled and fondly called him home, for now he was back. Suddenly, King Yan wondered abruptly if his mother and sister were all right. Uncle held out a short pause. 2 years ago, while King Yan was away, his younger sister had gone off to cultivate with her girlfriend. He only let it happen because she was talented. But he didn't think she would disappear just like King Yan did. The boy went into shock. Uncle continued. When he went to the place where she was cultivating, all the man found there was her comb and her training sword. As people say, she was taken by the Tianjian sect. King Yan gripped the amulet tightly. He saw some building. He wondered, isn't this one of the powerful Chan Jianzong sects? The boy turned to get his uncle. He in turn gave him an admonition. Forget it if he was going to get his sister back. King Yan thought about the fact that after 3,000 years of living in the immortal world, his entire family would be reunited upon his return. Who would have thought that his sister had been taken by the Tianjianzong sect? He needs to calm down. After all, with King Yan's knowledge, it won't be difficult for him to regain his powers. And then he will definitely get his sister back. King Yan called out to his uncle and asked him to stop. He ran after him asking what had become of his cousin's arm. Uncle only replied that it was a long story, and he needed to rest first and only then could they talk. King Yan found this suspicious. Apparently, Uncle wants to hide something. But what happened to cousin? Suddenly, one of the servants ran up to his uncle. He called out to him as head of the house. The elders of the house should already be waiting for him in the hall. Uncle interjected. The servants nervously reported that they were waiting for him in the hall and wanted to choose an heir to the house. Uncle was outraged. How dare they say such a thing? King Yan only realized that there was no peace in this house. The elders began their discussion. By addressing the head of the house. Ever since Yunxuan became disabled, the position of heir to the house had been empty for half a year, which meant that a new heir to the house had to be chosen today. The elder sat on his throne, and the people crowded around him. The Grand Elder reported that his son Yun Yanking had already reached the 6th layer of the Star Realm. He had excelled in both talent and cultivation. Yun Yanking was a good-looking guy with hair that shimmered green. The elder claimed that his son was the most talented among the younger generation in his family. The people revolted. The position of head of the house could only be inherited from a straight line and no one else. Someone shouted that he shouldn't even dream about it. The elder became angry and shouted out that Yun Qingyan was missing and Yunxuan was injured. Does the Yun family still have a direct descendant? And if the head of the house is unwilling to agree, then all they can do is remove the head of the house and choose an heir. While the elders were having their discussion, an uncle entered. He burst into the hall shouting how dare they do such a thing. King Yan followed him. King Yan was clearly dissatisfied with what was happening. Crossing his arms, he walked into the building. The guy smirked as he walked past the crowd. The elders were astonished. Was this the same Yun Qingyan? The guy sat down on the throne and grinned. Yun Qingyan turned to the elders and said that since he was back, would all the hypocrites from the family branch dare to go against the direct heir? People began to talk to each other. No one could think of young Master Yun Qingyan coming back. Now the plan would be ruined. Young Master Qingyan was originally the heir apparent, 3 years ago. He was on the 5th layer of the Star Realm, and also the first genius of that city. With him, the Yun family would rise to the top. No one can match him, no matter how hard they try. The elders looked at each other. They decided to refrain from arguing. One of them, who spoke for one of his own kind, was incredibly angry. The man thought of them as cowards. He clearly didn't like what this could have resulted in. The men all bowed their heads to the young master. They said something about how they dared not say such a thing. The elder looked very noble, had gray hair, blue eyes, and wore a gray-blue robe. He was in agreement that Yun Qingyan was indeed the most suitable for an heir. But at this moment, the man was wondering what cultivation level he was at. Qingyan smiled and said that his level was the 3rd layer of the Star Realm. The people were defeated. Had his cultivation decreased? One would think that after the young master returned, their condition would change. What a loss and a pity. The elder was puzzled. He was encouraged by this information. A member of the elder's family laughed. After all, King Yan cannot take on the burden of a family with such low cultivation. He is no longer the genius he used to be, which means that the guy can crush him with a single blow. King Yan smirked and offered to give it a try. The other legacy candidate was enthusiastic. He is already on the 6th layer of the Star Realm. So he offered to show King Yan the difference between the two. The guy took a swing. King Yan laughed and called him an idiot, but the guy was restless. He said along with his swing that King Yan's trick wouldn't work on him and called him trash. How could he, with his 3rd layer Star Realm cultivation, block his punch? With his energy and his sword, King Yan was able to deflect the blow. The guy was dumbfounded. Lightning bolts formed near his fist, and he fell down. King Yan mockingly rebuked the guy for the fact that he was now truly the trash he had been talking about before. The other hare's face was right next to King Yan's shoes. The crowd spoke again. Young King Yan is on the 6th layer, so how could he win without making a move? Some talked about Yun Yanking being the only loss, and some talked about how young Master King Yan is the #1 genius. Mostly people supported young Master King Yan as the heir to the family. The guy who had just been at his feet, probably the future heir, was furious. He lashed out at King Yang with death threats. To him, the defeat was a real humiliation. The elder tried to calm the lad down. He shouldn't be reckless. After all, King Yan had a strange sword sheath. The returning genius smirked and praised the elder, said something about how he seemed to have some experience. The boy turned to his elder uncle. No one else has any objections. King Yan said of the fact that he would now be the heir of this house. The uncle looked excited. He agreed with the words. He said that he hereby declares that. Just as suddenly the elder stopped them. He declared that all he had done was use his treasure. The man pointed his finger at King Yan and began to shout that during the family meeting next month, if he could defeat Yun Yanking without that sheath, the elder would recognize him as the family heir. His uncle objected. After all, King Yan is only on the 3rd layer of the star realm. He won't be able to make up that much in just 1 month. He thought the elder was too shameless. King Yan walked over to his uncle, smirked, and railed at him. The guy said it was all right, except there was one problem. A month is too long. People were astonished. How could it be? King Yan smiled and only repeated that all he needed to win was 1 week. The elder was angry. He said that King Yan must have courage and must not forget what he said today. Yun Yanking was also angry. The elder continued, saying that if he couldn't beat Yun Yanking next week, he could safely hand the position of heir to the guy. The crowd cheered. It seemed like a really good show awaited them in a week. The people were discussing the situation. It turned out that young Master King Yan had only won because of his sheath. Someone rejoiced that he was right, and the 3rd layer really couldn't beat the 6th so easily. Uncle asked little Yan why he was being so reckless. Right now his scabbard protected him from the blow. But next, if the boy continues to fight him without his sheath, with King Yan's current cultivation, then Uncle worries what? Suddenly he was interrupted by King Yan. Uncle should not worry about it, but at the same time, if he wins, he will have to tell what happened to Brother Xuan. Saying this, the boy's eyes lit up. Uncle was concerned. He became sad and looked away, but he agreed nonetheless, and he promised that if he won, he would fulfill his condition. In the place of the warehouse was King Yan. To return to the mortal world, he had lost all his cultivation, and it was a blessing to be able to retain at least 3 layers of the star realm. King Yan was sitting on the hay in a pose in which one usually meditates. He would not be able to defeat Yun Yanking with his current cultism. His eyes lit up. The guy smirked again. It looked like King Yan would have to use extraordinary tricks. The guy pondered the fact that taking pills was currently the fastest way to recover. It seems that in the past 3 years, the Yun family will never have an alchemist. This is indicated by the alchemy room. It's in such a terrible state that you can tell by it how long it's been abandoned. The guy was standing in a room that was all cobwebs and some kind of junk. King Yan thought back to the world before. Where immortals lived, alchemy was commonplace, but in the world of mortals, only masters could control the real fire of alchemy. He rubbed his hands together and suddenly began to act. With his abilities, he picked up the items he needed and stated that Linji, Fuling, and Shanguo were all he took from the family medicine warehouse. Each one was 10 years old. With a wave of his hand, he managed to master the fire and light something similar to a stove. The boy exhaled heavily and pointed the fire directly at the object. The fire ignited immediately. His next action was blue energy, another was fire again. Now he used his divine vision to look inside the furnace. The herbs were in the process of being purified, and if the pills are formed after he takes them, he will be able to restore his cultivation to the 5th layer of the star realm. And in 7 days, King Yan will be able to defeat Yun Yanking. 3 days later, in the same place, King Yan was practicing. He was creating pills. In 3 minutes, they should have been ready. Suddenly, someone burst in. The guy was outraged. He ordered the housekeeper to watch the door. How on earth could someone break in? He didn't even notice that he was bumping into the girl's chest. He was dazed. Some girl pushed him off his feet, and they both fell to the ground. King Yan. She gently began her conversation by saying how much she missed him. As she hugged him, she harped about how, after hearing about King Yan's return, she couldn't wait to meet him. King Yan was not happy with the situation. He turned his head when the girl tried to kiss him. The girl was stunned. Didn't he recognize her? She is Si Shoyan. The girl was very beautiful. She had turquoise hair, purple eyes, a graceful blue-pink dress, and a gold necklace. Shi Shoyan was amazed, but King Yan knew who she was. That was the reason he did not kill her. He turned around and began to walk up. But luckily, before Si Shoyan interrupted the technique, half of the pills had already been formed. Si Shoyan was very upset. She said she knew that King Yan hated her, but they hadn't seen each other for 3 years. Didn't he miss her? King Yan asked back with a touch of irritation. About missing her. They were engaged, but Si Shoyan betrayed him to marry another man for profit. King Yan stayed awake for 3 days to make the cure, and she almost ruined it. He needs to defeat Yun Yanking in 4 days. Si Shoyan had tears rolling down her eyes. She was incredibly upset. The guy looked at her dumbfounded, exhaled, and asked her to leave. The girl said she knew how she felt about him. That was the reason she came today. She wanted to give him her most precious thing. King Yan was outraged. She was already married in the royal city of the Tianyuan dynasty. Could it be that she was still a virgin? The girl drooped. She had never let him touch her all these 3 years. Si Shoyan realized when he left that he was the person she cared most about. She said this with tears in her eyes. King Yan looked at her sadly. King Yan sank into the abyss of memories. Si Shoyan was the first girl who touched his heart. When she betrayed him 3 years ago, he was heartbroken. He drank, but still respected her choice. He was hurt, and he pondered the fact that no one had told him that he deserved her more. But it was different now from the past. He had been practicing the immortal world for 3,000 years, and he was no longer the ignorant young man he had been before. The boy jerked his hand away. He was furious. What kind of man did Si Shoyan think he was? She must realize that if she did this, this situation would affect not only herself, but also King Yan. The girl folded her arms against her chest and cried. Si Shoyan continued. All she wanted was to give up her body. She sat down on her knees and continued to plead with him. Whether it was guilt or love, she begged him to use her body. At this time, someone was walking by. A guy walking next to the barn laughed. He is still the young master of the Yun family and has been training in seclusion. He didn't go out for 3 days and 3 nights. And during that time, King Yan was harassing a married woman. It was the tribesman of the great elder Yun Yuz. Shi Shoyan hid behind King Yan's back, and he in turn smirked. He asked if he still wanted to stay for 3 days and 3 nights, for his body wouldn't last 3 seconds, and threw off his cloak and scabbard. Yun Yuz was furious. He did not understand how this happened, for King Yan is only on the 3rd layer of the star realm. Without his scabbard, he shouldn't be able to withstand a single blow. King Yan looked enthusiastic. This encounter was very timely. Almost half of the pills were lost, but he had no one to be angry with. King Yan and Yun Yuz pounced on each other. Yun Yuz wondered what his current strength was and offered to find out. Their fists clashed. Yun Yuz was struck by lightning. He didn't understand how that was even possible. A new blow followed. Yun Yuz was thrown back against a tree. King Yan said about the guy being blind and reckless. He turned away and walked away. Shi Shoyan ran after the guy. She is still in his heart. She took his hand and wondered if he killed him because of her. King Yan told Si Shoyan that she should leave. The girl tried to grab his arm and stop him. But the boy still insisted that she had to leave, or else the whole Yun family would find out that she had come to her without permission. No good would come of it if her husband found out. Shi Shoyan objected. He is only her fiancé. King Yan was shocked. On that fateful day, the girl had gone to Huajiao to pray with him, but she had not yet married in the imperial city, and if King Yan wanted to, she could leave him. Suddenly, from somewhere in the sky, a male figure jumped down right between King Yan and Si Shoyan. The man was wearing a red and white robe. His hair was gray and his eyes were orange. It was Yun Meng. He asked her if she had heard him. He stood in front of her to defend him. He repeated that King Yan had told her to leave. Yun Meng was furious. Was she really offering the young master her body? He grabbed not by the neck, and the girl in turn said, no. Thousands of Yun Meng's bloody hands. Yun Meng is the executioner of the Yun family. Countless people die in his hands. Not only are outsiders very afraid of Yun Meng, but many of his own people also fear him. Shi Shoyan was frightened and told Yun Meng to stay away from her. She began to run away. Yun Meng sat down on his knees in front of King Yan and asked if the master was okay. He heard that Yun Yu was coming here to cause him trouble, so he had to hurry over here. King Yan began to reassure Yun Meng. It's okay. Yun Meng said about hearing that he was back, but he couldn't meet him sooner. He apologized. King Yan reassured him he was older, so it was King Yan who had to meet his uncle. Yun Meng was very upset. Unfortunately, the young master had returned, but his parents and Kier had disappeared a year ago. King Yan told his uncle again, "Don't worry, he will find them, and their family will surely be reunited." Yun Meng became enthusiastic and offered his memory in case of need. King Yan asked for help, asking that Yun Yu's body be returned to the elders and tell them that if they wanted to create a problem, they should have sent someone better. Yun Mei took Yun Yu's body and agreed to comply with the young master's request, and he said that only a man with such iron bloody fists was worthy to be the next head of the Yun family. In 4 days, the young master should definitely win. The man waved his hand and left. King Yan smiled and agreed with his statement. King Yan reasoned. This time, 16 pills of accumulated qi and 17 pills of purification were turned into pills of red poison. He tucked the pills into his clothes and said that the red poison pills could poison more than 10,000 people. As for the 16 pills of Kai accumulation, normally, if you take that many Kai accumulation pills at one time while in the 3rd layer of the Star Kingdom, you can explode. King Yan sat down in a meditation pose and began to receive energy into himself. In his case, 16 pills of accumulating ki could not reach even 1,000th of his body's limit. Gathering. Finally, the guy broke through to the 4th layer of the Star Realm. Suddenly, some man came in and reported that he had heard that King Yan had killed Yun Yu. It was King Yan's brother. The guy, a brunette with long hair in a blue robe, ran into King Yan's barn. The man was surprised. Had his brother really come to see him? The boy began to swear at Brother Yan. He was too impulsive. Even though Yun Yu was not the son of the family, but after all, he was still the nephew of the elder. King Yan said not to worry his brother. Elders are not stupid. All he can do now is burst with anger. At the same time, sobs rang out in the elder's house. Chen Lai was crying over her nephew's corpse. The elder, on the other hand, without shedding a single tear, stood pondering. Chen Lai jumped to the master's feet and begged him to avenge their nephew. He only in turn called her a foolish woman and slapped her on the cheek. Chen Lai grabbed the spot of the blow and was in tears all about the fact that their son Yun Yanking was going to fight Yun King Yan. She was concerned about this. The elder was furious. He simply asked Yun Yu to check his cultivation. Pointing his finger at the woman, he asked the servants to lock her up before Yanking returned. No one should let her out. Chen Lai was incredibly upset. She asked the master if it was fair that their nephew had been murdered. The elder sighed heavily. He thought about it. It was only because of the greed of their young family fame that they changed their last name to Yun. At this time, the tea people were performing a prayer. The struggles in the family would not allow outsiders to interfere. This was the moment when the Yun family was established 100 years ago, and if there is a violation, one must stand up and kill. King Yan was telling his brother that Yun Yu is not anyone important or special to cause trouble because of him. And if the elders suddenly decided to kill King Yan as revenge for his nephew, his entire family would be expelled from the Yun family. King Yan's brother suggested with a smile that he was worried in vain. The boy asked him why King Yan would risk his life so much fighting with Yun Yanking if he didn't like to fight for power. King Yan replied that he wasn't interested in the inheritance, but there was another reason for that. The brother exhaled bashfully. He worried that it was because of him. King Yan confidently agreed. The brother turned to King Yan. The reason for not telling him this is good for him, too. King Yan said he knew. Jumped up from the roof where he and his brother were sitting, and said that was the reason he wanted to be heir to the family. Representing the whole city in his arms, and said he would use the power of the whole family to avenge him. He said it proudly. His brother turned to him and looked at him with warmth in his eyes. King Yan jumped down and told his brother to wait for his good news. He would go first. In order to defeat Yun Yanking, he needs to get something. At this time, training was actively going on at the Yun family's training ground. Directions were being actively handed out. One must straighten one's arms to keep his balance. The first one was as fast as the wind. People were actively training. King Yan really missed this place. In those years, his sister and he were regular guests here. And in front of the arena is this important place where there are secret treasures of his Yun family, the Gongfa Pavilion. The Gongfa Pavilion is an important place for the Yun family's martial arts, with many techniques collected since the family's founding. On the first floor are the basic martial arts techniques. On the second floor are the medium level 3 techniques. On the third floor are the top 3 level techniques, each of which is a treasure. But only the sons of the Yun family who have passed the Pavilion Keeper's exam can be qualified to borrow level 3 higher class techniques. King Yan entered the building. On a chair sat an old gray-haired man with a trumpet. The whites of his eyes were black and the eyes themselves were amber. He wondered who it was that had entered. It was Yun King Yan. The man asked why he needed such a technique. King Yan replied that the reason was to prepare for battle. The man asked for an identification token. King Yan was a little embarrassed. As it happened, he had lost it. He had crossed the world of immortals and mortals twice, so his belongings were indeed lost. The man looked at him puzzled and said that the token was the most important keepsake of the Yun family. So if he couldn't even take care of it, how could he guarantee the return of the borrowed techniques? The man used his technique and told King Yan to get out. He uses the pressure power of the Moon Kingdom, but for some reason it doesn't work on this 17 to 18-year-old, who is only on the 4th layer of the Star Realm. The man again tried to push the guy away with his energy, but he failed, so he invited him in. King Yan thanked the elder. He is the most direct son of the Yun family, so he could go in to choose the necessary technique. The man began to walk up the stairs and explained about the 2 rules to follow. First, only 1 technique could be chosen. Secondly, the length of stay should not exceed half an hour. King Yan replied that Junior understood. He went up the stairs. The man wondered which technique he would choose. King Yan went up. Maybe he would be the one to learn the technique. King Yan entered a place where there were a huge number of different techniques. These were top-notch techniques that Clan Yun had kept for many years. The guy scratched his head and said that for ordinary masters here, every technique would require years of training. But with his divine sense that he had developed in the immortal world, learning all these techniques would take no more than 3 minutes. King Yan used his abilities and used his energy to start reading all the techniques. Energy formed, and he proceeded. In his sea of consciousness, he used the 7 fingers, meteor sword, 9 hands, mountain fist technique. He demonstrated and taught each technique. In the end, he was able to learn from all of them. Yun Yanking would be defeated by King Yan in 3 days, but one of the techniques was covered by a chain and a separate energy ball. It was quite strange. Hadn't the guy learned this technique? Reaching for it, steam began to emanate from it. The book opened and a monster emerged from the portal. He called the entire younger generation ignorant. A child who is only on the 4th layer of the Star Realm. He is not worthy to know the Dharma. What does this deity guard? He was furious. King Yan grinned. This technique was not so easy that it was guarded by a beast. This technique is even better than the others, so he will take it with him. He drew his sword and swung it. King Yan struck the beast with it, turned and adjusted his scabbard. As he turned around, he saw smoke. Gradually, the dark clouds and the violet eyes in them evaporated. Instead of a terrible monster, a brown little cute monkey with big pink eyes appeared. He turned to him as if he were the master. This cute creature had not seen Manhwa, so he asked to accept this celestial technique. King Yan's eyes lit up. Is it really a celestial ranking technique? The technique has this little creature in it. It will come out as soon as the master orders it. The little beast held the technique in his hands, and in a second, it disappeared into this book. It fell down. King Yan pondered. A heavenly class skill is times more powerful than a high class skill. He had no idea there would be such a treasure in the pavilion. Although he had practiced hundreds of celestial class skills in the immortal world, unfortunately, he would not be able to use them because of his lack of cultivation. It was better to use the low celestial class skills first. King Yan came down and told the elder that he wanted to borrow this technique. The man was pleasantly impressed. It was the same technique. The elder was satisfied. He stroked his beard. For the first time in 300 years, someone could take it from the Gong Pavilion. The elder said that this technique was meant for him, so it was okay to take it. King Yan bowed to him and thanked him. As the guy walked away, the elder squeezed his chair hard. He was satisfied. They finally had a worthy successor in their family. The humiliation they had been going through all these years because of the Lin family and all that Xwaner had endured, he would surely help avenge them. King Yan received 2 blows in the pavilion, and his clothes were ruined. The lad stretched himself and reflected that the decisive battle was 3 days away, so it wasn't too late to go home, change, and practice again. Night moon. King Yan was at home. Suddenly, he heard his brother calling him. The guy came out of the house. He wondered what had happened. A huge number of girls had gathered near his brother. They were admiring the beauty of the young master. Another girl was talking about how red suited the young master better. Yan's brother called him to meet Uncle Meng. Someone mocked Fei Fei at Donkin Restaurant. The brother grabbed Xin Yan by the arm. The boy was stunned. He didn't understand what was going on. The night sky. Men were walking with their girlfriends in the streets. Drunk people were wandering around. At this time, between houses, some guy was harassing a girl from a noble family. People were discussing it, calling him brave. After all, he had publicly molested the third daughter of the Yun family. Since then, the Yun family has lost all respect. The guy, a brunette man with blue eyes and a twisted expression, was holding the girl with his hands. He laughed and said that even though the whole family was made up of garbage, but the girls of the Yun family were truly beautiful. The girl was truly beautiful. Her pink hair matched her eyes perfectly. She looked beautiful. The boy leaned his face against her neck and told her not to resist, or she would cry and beg him. He tried to kiss her, but King Yan got there in time and put his foot up instead of the girl. The boy kissed King Yan's shoes. As soon as he realized this, he started to cough and asked, "Who is this?" Opening his eyes wide, the guy realized that young King Yan was standing in front of him. He smiled and said that the guy was licking like a dog. He kicked him in the groin with his knee and said cheerfully that it had been a long time since they had seen each other. The guy grabbed between his legs and agonized in terrible pain. He tried to say that young King Yan had no right to do this to him. King Yan, in turn, confidently crossed his arms and looked at the boy with mockery. He asked if he really dared not do it. In that case, he would do something more ruthless. He touched the guy's stomach. He was surprised, but he felt an unusual energy. King Yan pressed a little, and the energy took on a golden color. Clenching his fist, he said it was useless. The guy fell down, bleeding from his mouth. The people began to discuss the situation. Young King Yan named even Lin Hai, Zhang's only son, a master of the martial arts school. Someone was talking about the spiritual sea, a place to store the spiritual power of cultivators. And now his spiritual sea was destroyed, and after that, he would no longer be able to continue cultivating. People's voices were heard saying that he was the only receiver of the martial arts school. For him, this is more humiliating than death. Lin Hei's servants tried to recruit a sneak attack to avenge the young master. From behind, King Yan listened to a voice asking for his help. It was his uncle. He delivered one blow after another, and already all three were defeated. Uncle said not to get his hands dirty with these scum. The boys were beaten mercilessly. King Yan clapped his hands. He praised the man, saying that he had done a pretty good job. Uncle Meng's skills had really improved in the 3 years he hadn't seen him. The man asked the master what he wanted to do with this Shenyang. King Yan smirked. The guy was trembling in fear. King Yan ordered him to be tied up and let the martial arts school ransom him for 10 million silver before dawn. And if he did not suddenly get the money, those who dared to cheat King Yan would be killed without mercy. He said this while putting his foot on the guy's face. The people were discussing this situation. Isn't King Yan only on the 3rd layer of the Star Kingdom? Then why is he so arrogant? Many people said that being arrogant was the norm for geniuses. Could this not be true about his level? Finally, 3 years later, the Yun family is resurrected. The girl was set free. Fei Fei was frightened. King Yan gave the girl a hand. He said that everything was all right now and they could go home. The girl was very happy. Fei Fei hugged King Yan and agreed. Finally, already at home, Uncle Meng brought the special medicine that King Yan had asked to buy for a ransom of 10 million silver from the martial arts school. The boy was happy that there was Uncle Meng. He turned to the man, said he needed to do an important thing, so his uncle needed to watch the door. The man agreed. At the Yun family's alchemical house, Uncle Meng stood guard. Suddenly voices were heard. 2 guys wondered what it was that Yun King Yan had done to make the bloody butcher Yun Meng guard this house. Elders, they want them to control every move. Yun King Yan, but how can they do this if it is like this? Yesterday he received a technique from the Gong Pavilion. One ordered the other to tell the elder what he was practicing. At any rate, the battle is only 3 days away. King Yan is a waste of time, who is only on the Z layer of the Star Realm. No matter how he trains, he will not be able to defeat Mr. Yun Yanking. The boys, having come down, realized that the best thing for them was to go for a drink. King Yan, with his fingers to his ear, was able to listen to their conversation with his abilities. He marveled at how the elders still dared to send someone to follow him. King Yan aligned his fingers and sliced his finger with blue energy. His blood fell on the flag with the dragon drawn on it. After he gets the seat of chief successor, it was time to cleanse the family of the trash. King Yan said that the yellow star flag, light night jade, peach tree, talisman, paper, a drop of his blood, essence, and pure flame that only an alchemist of high rank can control. Only then can they improve the gathering spirit, which can bring together spiritual ki for thousands of miles. A drop of King Yang's blood hit the dragon scroll. All the energy rushed out of the circle with the objects the boy had collected. It enveloped the entire space and turned golden in color. King Yan said with a smile that everything was ready. Walking out of the building, the guy called the monkey with him. The animal immediately appeared at the master's call. King Yan ordered him to go and place those seals where he had marked them with his divine sense. The monkey agreed. She galloped across the rooftops and deftly unfolded all the seals given to her. King Yan declared that he was an immortal emperor. When he regained his cultivation, he would be able to ignore the shackles of the realm. As long as people have enough aura, they will be able to ascend step by step into the sky. Though he does not know how much aura this little array will be able to gather. At the same moment, the monkey appeared. She declared that everything was ready. And at that moment, something began to happen. King Yan stood on the edge of the roof and blue energy rushed into the sky. It was as if some sort of pink portal had formed. Uncle Meng was shocked. King Yan was pleased with what was happening. He raised his hands up and a blue aura came out of him. It emanated from everything. The blue energy mixed with the pink energy and there was an explosion. Uncle Man fell to the ground and opened his mouth. He wondered if the young master was okay. King Yan was disappointed by what was happening. The energy was not enough. The 8-meter circle's aura was coming together, but it only doubled his aura. King Yan had a breakthrough to the 5th layer of the star realm. Uncle Meng could not come away from what had happened. He couldn't believe what was happening. A circle aura. An 8-meter circle aura. Uncle Meng wondered how Master Yan did it. King Yan exhaled and smiled. He said he couldn't say how he did it. The guy just did an array of spirit gathering in the courtyard. King Yan jumped off the roof. Uncle Meng was astonished. Could it be that Master Yan is not only an alchemist, but also a master of arrays? King Yan, on the other hand, put his hands behind his back and said that it was just a master of arrays. This is nonsense. Master Yan said that yes, it is nonsense. Uncle Meng said that array masters are much more respected than alchemists. Maybe King Yan is the first array master in Tianyu City. While Uncle Meng arrived in shock, King Yan grinned. He had been cultivating immortals in the world for 3,000 years, so it was no surprise that Uncle Meng was surprised. King Yan asked the man if he was really stuck in Layer 7, the star realm for the 5th year now. Uncle Meng asked, could the young master really see it? King Yan sadly said that he could. It was pretty obvious. He saw Uncle Meng's aura. It was dark and full of skulls, like their family's sword. Yun Mei had killed countless people, and naturally, he was haunted by countless evil. King Yan touched Uncle Mi's aura and asked him if he trusted him. The man thought, isn't this the same thing that Master Yan did when he named Zhong Lin Hai? Uncle Mi had some doubts, but said that of course he trusted him. No matter what Master Yan wants to do to him, he is not going to say anything. King Yan smiled, said, good, and continued to manipulate Uncle Mi's aura. The boy released all the evil that was in the man. The amount of it was enormous. Suddenly, King Yan managed to break through. He managed what he was doing. The boy exhaled heavily. Uncle Meng was shocked. Had young Master Yan really helped solve the problem in his body? The man felt relieved. He had just reached the 8th layer of the star realm. Uncle Meng got down on his knee and thanked Master Yan. King Yan in turn smiled and said that it was okay and the man could get up. After Uncle Meng followed him, of course, he helped him. Yun King Yan would treat him well. King Yan's brother came running after him. He called him after him. Father will be able to arrange an escape for the boy. King Yan looked at his brother with interest. What kind of escape are we talking about? The boy took Xing Yan by the shoulder and said confidently that an escape was necessary. This is what his father said as soon as he heard that Yanking had returned, and after hearing that he had killed Yun Yu, he would kill him in a duel. His father also heard that Yun Yanking had recently returned and reached the 7th layer of the star realm. His brother was worried that King Yan had recently recovered to the 5th layer of the star realm, but it was still tantamount to suicide to get into a fight with Yanking. King Yan scratched behind his head and sighed. He told his brother that he could have confidence in him. No matter how high Yan Yanking's cultivation was, he posed no threat to him. The brother tried to object. King Yan interrupted him and asked if he could feel the difference between his past backyard and his present one. At first, the brother was perplexed. Then, when he looked up, he was surprised. A cluster of auras was visible. King Yan's brother really couldn't understand how an aura could be twice as big as the one outside, and it also wouldn't stop increasing. Uncle Meng proudly replied that it was the young Master Yan who had made the spirit collection array. My brother asked again in amazement, "Is the array the same spirit array?" He immediately turned around to King Yan and asked, how did he manage to do that? The guy smirked and proudly replied that he was not only doing it for himself, but also for his brother. The boy was surprised and amazed at King Yan's words. The man, however, continued. He said that he had heard from his men that not only his words, but the spiritual sea had been shattered. King Yan continued. After the duel, his brother and Uncle Meng will stay in his backyard. To do so, he will use this array and another secret treasure and restore the spiritual sea, his brother and his left hand. He will then return to the path of martial arts, and those who maim him, he will make them pay with their lives, and those who insulted him, he will make them kneel before him and apologize. King Yan wants, now that he is back, for the whole city of Tanyu to know that he will not allow anyone to touch his people. In his hand, the boy held the strongest golden energy. His brother was silent, and King Yan asked him what had happened. He only kept silent. The guy had tears in his eyes. He replied that he thought about how he could have such a good brother like King Yan and took his hand. Duel day. People had a hard time, accepting that a man who had been missing for 3 years showed up. Some said that was not the only thing that mattered. King Yan is the first genius in the city of Tanyu. Hundreds of people gathered in anticipation of the duel. 2 guys were discussing what was going on. One told the other that he actually admired young King Yan's courage. His cultivation had dropped to 3 layers, but despite that, he still had the ripeness to fight Yan Yanking for the Yan inheritance. The second responded that he didn't think it was such a daring thing to do. But at that moment, he too was blinded by that power. All that guy could think about at that moment was that power. The guys in front of them joined in the conversation. One of them objected. Now Yan Yanking is the chief genius of the Yan family. Someone was saying that he had reached the 7th layer of the star realm. The boy was amazed. Had Yan Yanking really reached layer 7 of the star realm? If that was the case, Yan King Yanking's duel with him was unconditional death. Finally, Yan Yanking appeared. The guy asked his companions to pay attention. He walked in with a snide grin. Yan Yanking turned to Yan King Yan. He said that the day of his death was today. Yanking's father said that to kill King Yang so quickly is not worth it. After all, he wants to see him suffer. The people held the great elder in high esteem. They believed sacredly that Yan Yanking would win. He, in turn, asked them how they were doing. He didn't expect the elders to come to see him fight Yan King Yan. The elders laughed. How could they miss the duel between Yanking and King Yan? Those words were true. One was the first genius of Tanyu City, and the other was the genius of the Yan family. Such a duel could be seen once every 100 years. One of the elders said that King Yan was a waste of time, and Yan Yanking is already in the 7th layer of the star realm. Yanking smirked. King Yan and his brother and Uncle Meng were walking towards him. The boy thought about the fact that the great elder was not only accompanied by 3 elders, he also gathered 10 leaders of the other forces of Tanyu City. King Yan reflected on the fact that although his uncle is the patriarch of the Yan family, when he came to the martial arts arena, none of the elders came up to show respect for him. King Yan was really pissed off. It seemed that it was time to put the Yan family in order. People called for attention to look at Yan Yanking's ability to fly at such a height. They were amazed at it. It seems that Yan Yanking had indeed reached layer 7 of the star realm. People congratulated the elder, saying that Yan Yanking would become the successor of the Yan family. Yanking abruptly came down to earth. He invited Yan King Yanking to his death, but he ignored him. Yanking was astonished at this. It pissed the guy off properly. King Yan asked his brother what was wrong with him. Yanking was angry. How dare he ignore him? Both guys turned around at Yanking's shout. King Yan turned around. He considered the people and asked if Lin Bai Hua was the person who crippled his brother's arm and cultivation. The guy asked not to ask. King Yan was silent, exhaled heavily, and agreed. He turned around, pulled on a smile, and reminded his brother of the agreement. When he beat Yun Yanking, he would tell him the truth. Yanking continued to shout. He asked Yun King Nanking to come to him soon and accept his death. They hadn't seen each other for 3 years. Was he really afraid of even a duel? King Yan laughed. Does he really think he is afraid? King Yan jumped over the heads of the elders and hit Father Yanking. He shouted and told his son to get rid of him. King Yan landed on the battlefield. Yanking gathered an aura near him and told his father not to worry. The people hammered away. Yanking put out his best effort. Now Yun King Yan is going to die. Someone said that Yun King Yan should not have been blinded by the Yun family's inheritance and go against Yun Yanking, who is in the 7th layer of the star realm. Yanking gathered a tremendous amount of energy near him. He suggested that he look at the blue sky. After all, in the next second, King Yan will fall asleep forever. King Yan used the ground-breaking technique, and Yanking was defeated with the first punch. The guy asked him dismissively, how did he with the 7th layer of the star realm manage to lose from the first blow? The elders immediately rushed over to Yanking in an attempt to help. The guy's lips swelled to enormous proportions from the blow. He began to cough. Yanking asked his opponent if his stultification had really shrunk. King Yan blurted out in a smile. He replied that yes, his cultivation had indeed decreased, but here, he wouldn't even be able to defeat him with only 5 star realm layers. Some man clapped his hands. He addressed King Yang as the first genius of Tangyu City. He said that he turned out to be a disappointment. The guy in the purple robe approached King Yan's brother. Wondering if this was correct, he tried to put his hand on Xuan's shoulder, but King Yan didn't let that happen. He removed the guy's hand with his foot and ordered him not to touch his brother with his dirty hands. The boy asked if everything was all right and why was he so agitated. He just wanted to greet Brother Xuan. His cultivation was ruined, his arm was broken. It had only been 6 months and he had recovered so quickly. The guy felt it was his duty to come and congratulate them. King Yan looked at him disapprovingly. Was he the person who had damaged his brother's ghost stump and broken his arm? The guy in purple clothes looked at him in surprise. Hadn't his brother ever told him? Well, it made sense in his mind. After something like this, it was normal not to talk about it, not to talk to other people. Since Yun Xuan didn't tell, he would be kind enough to tell his own. Brother abruptly interrupted the purple-clad guy's words. He said that there was no need to do that and worry about this. Yun Xuan will tell Sing Yan everything himself. The brother asked Yan to step back. There are too many people here. He will tell what to do that day. King Yan agreed. The boy stopped them. He came here to say something. His visit to the Yun family is actually for another important matter. King Yan wondered what it was about. The guy came here by order of the Lin family. On behalf of the Lin family, he is challenging the heirs of their Yun family. Since this is a duel, there will also be a bet. If the Yun family wins, the Lin family is willing to give up the Wo Yin iron mine in the Luyan Mountains. People were impressed by such a bet. As they knew, the Wu Yin iron mine was the main industry of the Lin family. Their annual income was about 2 million land of silver, and the Wu Yin iron mine accounted for half of their income. It turns out that if Lin Baihua is serious and Yun King Yan will accept the challenge, wouldn't something of equal value have to be put up to compete for the Wu Yin mine? These reflections were correct. But what will the Yun family put up against the Wu Yin mine? Would it be the spiritual garden of medicine? Lin Baihua said that yes, it will be a spiritual garden of medicine. But this spiritual garden of medicine is also a pillar of the Yun family. King Yan's uncle begged him not to agree to this proposal. The eldest of the elders said that he would recognize Yun King Yan's inheritance because he had defeated his son, but he still just can't accept such a bet. Lin Baihua has a level 8. King Yang, as the owner of a level 5 stellar Earth, has no sense to challenge. Lin Baihua can compete with the higher ranks of the Yun family. Thus, he just wants to rob their family. Lin Baihua turned to Yun King Yang as the heir. The elders are soft-hearted cowards who are afraid to fight. But after a second, he was stunned. King Yan simply ignored him and suggested that his brother leave the elders to fight for a while and go to a quiet place. And there Xuan could tell the whole story. Lin Baihua was furious. How could he just ignore him like that? King Yan, on the other hand, ran away with Yun Xuan. The brothers arrived at the rooftop overlooking beautiful trees and an incredible sunset. King Yan suggested that Xuan tell him all about it here. The brother was silent and lightly agreed. He didn't want to remember that day of trying for humiliation for the rest of his life. The events took place exactly 1 year ago. It began in the assembly hall. His uncle called Suaner for a conversation. He asked if he knew the eldest daughter of the Lin family, Lin Mei. The boy nodded shyly, with a warm smile. The man was delighted at this answer. He had gone to the Lin family today to arrange a marriage with Lin Mei Lan. Suan wanted to ask more about the marriage. The man replied that it was not just for him, but for the Yun family as a whole. He himself must know that after King Yan's disappearance, the strength of their family was no longer what it used to be. In the past, the Yun family was one of the three powers of Changyu City, along with the Iron Wolf sect and the Lin family. But now, the Iron Wolf sect took advantage of King Yan's disappearance and encroached on their Yun family's main business. And if they suddenly invaded them, the Lin family would be forced to control the entire city of Tanyu. So now he must marry the Lin family's daughter, so that they will unite against the Iron Wolves sect. The uncle asked Suaner to do this for their Yun family. The man was worried about whether the guy blamed him. Suaner was encouraged. The training ended early today. Maybe we should go to the shore and take a walk. He replied that he certainly didn't blame the man. Not only would Suaner be able to help his family, but he could also marry the woman he loved. He could probably be considered the luckiest eldest son in the world. It's more than just luck. It is also very joyful. Suaner reached the residence of Lin Mei Lan. But when he came to the door, very strange sounds were heard behind it. Someone at the door was talking about why there was such a rush. Another voice was saying that there was nothing to be afraid of because there was no one here. Suaner, excited by this talk, burst into the residence. He saw his fiancée and her cousin together on the bed, doing something they shouldn't be doing. Lin Mei was stunned. He began to call out names. Lin Mei, Lai Mi, Lan. How on earth could she do such a thing to her cousin? Her brother stood up and began to dress. He smiled and asked what he was talking about. He grabbed Suaner by the scruff of the neck. The guy started to turn the situation around and talk about actually breaking into their Lin family in broad daylight and trying to molest his sister Mai Lan. Suaner was shocked. Only Lin Mai smiled wryly. He cheerfully started screaming and asking for help. Someone burst into his sister's room. Would Lin Mai really do that? Suddenly, a cry was sent out for how dare Suaner do such a thing. Lin Mi dragged him by the scruff of the neck out of the residence and wanted to explain the whole situation to Brother Hua. He looked at Suaner dismissively. The boy tried to explain himself, but Hua wouldn't even listen. He took Suan by the scruff of the neck, kicked him, and told him not to say a word. Even though he is a future son-in-law, he still has no right to desecrate his little sister's innocence before the wedding. Hua took Suaner by the hair and gathered energy in his hands. King Yan's brother tried to say that he did nothing, but still no one listened to him. Brother Hua sent him to hell and damaged Suaner's spiritual sea. The guy groaned in pain. Later, when he woke up, he saw people blurry and felt very bad. People around him said he was garbage, and it would have been better if his other arm had been broken as well. This is a tremendous loss. His spiritual sea must not just be damaged, but completely destroyed. Suaner was called the disgrace of the Yun family. The boy was subjected to bullying among the family. Suaner was desperate. At that time, he only smiled and hogged his grief. That was the end of the story to Brother Yang. This is what happened then. King Yan didn't utter a word, only burst into a fierce blue flame. Suaner drank every day for half a year, all to forget the humiliation and hatred of that day. He wants to avenge himself. He wants to kill Lin Weixuan's hatred is burning within him. He wants to destroy the entire Lin family, but he didn't have that kind of power. And the only family he relied on didn't just not avenge him, they ridiculed the guy, and accused the Yun family of disgrace. While the boys were talking, the elders gathered around them. The eldest of them called out to Yun King Yan and opened the gate. Uncle Meng appeared following them. He addressed the master and informed him that the four elders wanted to see him. Yun King Yan was furious. The elder thought about the truly horrified look on his face, and suggested that Suaner's story might have been the reason for it. The elder turned to King Yan. He said that he had won, and they would recognize him as their successor, but that he would have to agree to one of their conditions. He would swear that he would not avenge Yan Xuan in this life. The other elders would concur. Yun King Yan should not blame them. They suggested forgetting everything. Even if Yun Xuan is not to blame, it still doesn't matter. And if he does not promise to do so, then they can consider that he voluntarily gave up his status as heir to the family. King Yan was furious. A blue energy enveloped him. He turned to his brother. King Yan would not only help him get revenge, but he would also raise their Yun family to the highest level. He wondered if it was really them. His brother replied that not only them, but also the head of the guards as well as the hereditary hall. Suan told them the whole truth, but not only did they not believe him, they also ridiculed him. King Yan jumped off the roof onto the ground right in front of the elders. He said that it was time for the elders to pay for their sins. The guy's blue aura was blazing. He was furious. He struck one blow after another. His speed stunned the elders, but the elder objected. He did not allow himself to be ignorant. Since he dared to attack, he shouldn't blame him for crippling King Yan. The boy and the elder faced each other in battle. They came at each other, their auras touched, and there was a huge explosion. Yan Xuan ran to Brother Yan. He was worried about him. The explosion was so powerful that all the tiles placed on the ground were destroyed, and the elders were thrown back. King Yan, in turn, was not hurt one bit. The eldest of them all received a wound in his shoulder. It was bleeding. He wondered how that was even possible. King Yan took a blow from the 9th layer of the Star Realm, but did not receive a single wound. For his part, the guy still stood with his fist extended without uttering a single word. How was it possible that an elder was wounded and King Yan was not? How could a guy be so strong, even though he is only on the 5th layer of the Star Kingdom? If one of the elders had known that young King Yan was so talented, he would never have gone against him. The elders lay on the ground, recovering from the blow, still arriving in shock. The oldest of them, the one who was struggling, was stunned. He turned around to look at his comrades. If he could not defeat King Yan now, he feared that he would have difficulty serving the people in the Yun family in the future. The man was gathering golden energy in his hand. He shouted, calling out to young King Yan. The elder accused him of having just used a stealth attack, and if he fought him honestly, the only way he would have left would be the path of death. The man threw himself with his golden energy in his hands at young King Yan. The guy looked at him dismissively, exhaled, and offered to check it out. Yun King Yan, together with the elder, engaged in a fight. Punch followed punch after punch, and everyone was frantically watching. Someone said that they had already exchanged over 100 blows in such a short period of time. One of the men was worried about what he would do if the elder lost, and the other supported him and told him that he couldn't even talk about the chance of losing. That's nonsense. With King Yan's level of cultivation, he should be exhausted soon. The guy in turn accumulated golden energy in his fist and performed the Fist of the Mountain technique. He channeled all the energy into the brush of his hand and struck the elder. While the man tried to block this attack, Yun King Yan applied the next one, 7 star fingers. A new 9 hands followed immediately after this one. The elder was terrified. As soon as Yun King Yan touched him, he immediately started coughing up blood. The man did not understand why. In spite of such a low cultivation, his power was so enormous. The elder was simply thrown backwards. So much so. Yun King Yan's strength was enormous. Yun King Yan used his energy. There was like some sort of blue-pink colored aura surge. The elder was defeated, but he still wondered how he could be so skilled in using power and martial techniques. The blow with which the man was defeated was so strong that there was a shallow hole in the ground beneath the elder's body. If the man and Yun King Yan were at the same level of cultivation, he would probably already be a corpse. The guy jumped up and was right in front of the elder. His facial expression was incredibly furious. The man was coughing. He wondered what Yun King Yan had even been doing for the past 3 years. Although his cultivation had decreased, but his combat power had increased too much. He had also learned so many high-level techniques. The man was sitting on the ground as if he was trying to accuse the guy of something. King Yan only grinned. He had only used 3 techniques. Did the elder think that was too much? Yun King Yan put his foot on his shoulder as he said this. The other elders decided not to stay away. They with their auras tried to attack the guy. One of them ordered King Yan not to be so rude to the great elder. The other wondered if King Yan really thought the 3 men couldn't kill him. Now they could only fight to the death. Yun King Yan was enraged. Uncle Meng rushed to the rescue. He told the master that he would take them on, but the latter replied that he had to protect Brother Xuan. Yun King Yan grabbed one of the elders by the arm, then another, and began striking them. One of the most persistent men tried to use the 7 star fingers technique on King Yan. The guy was stunned, his face bleeding. The elder laughed. Did King Yan really think that he was the only one who could use the high-level techniques of the Yun family? The guy smirked. It had been hundreds of years since his blood had flowed. He was intrigued.
After King Yan was injured, an unknown object charged towards him with great speed, leaving a purple trail behind. As soon as the object was in range of the guy, he immediately caught it. One of the elders recognized this mysterious object. It was that mysterious scabbard. King Yan clearly knew them. He guessed that the scabbard had come to him because the elders had managed to injure him. Memories of how he had single-handedly defeated entire armies of his enemies using the heavenly sword of decapitation hidden in that very scabbard came flooding back to him. But, unfortunately, the weapon itself was not there. But this did not particularly upset the hero. The scabbard was enough for him in this world. Kin Yan placed them behind his back. By then the elders were already ready to attack. The scabbard that came to the boy's aid did not frighten the mages at all, and they gathered all their strength together and were going to attack all at once. However, Kin Yan felt that these senile old men were not worthy to see the power of his legendary scabbard and continued to fight with his bare hands. With lightning speed, he flew up to one of the elders and stabbed him with his hand. The old man did not have time to react to such a quick attack and coughed up blood. The other elders were shocked. They couldn't believe that Kin Yan possessed such a fast body technique. One of them suggested that the guy had taken forbidden pills that could instantly improve his cultivation. While he was reporting his hypothesis to the others, Kin Yan was already behind him. Although the old man was scared, he was not confused and immediately tried to attack, but the guy just grabbed him by the neck and started choking him. He confirmed that he did indeed have the forbidden pills in his possession. However, they were different from the ones mentioned by the elder and were not used to improve one's cultivation or strength. Kin Yan threw one of them into the old man's mouth, causing him to immediately bleed from the mouth, and in a few seconds he was completely dead. Others also realized that they were red poison pills. The remaining two elders were incredibly scared. They didn't know how they could handle such a strong opponent. Kin Yan was surprised that the surviving elders were aware of the red poison pills and remarked that it would be a loss if they ate them. After that, a large cluster of blue aura formed around his palm. As it turned out, he activated the 7 star fingers technique, then used it on another elder. He, alas, could not survive the blow of such power. 3 of the 4 elders were dead, and only 1 remained. He was incredibly scared and muttered to himself that all of his teammates were dead. Suddenly, Kin Yan appeared behind him. He assured the fat man that he wouldn't die and he didn't have to worry about it. However, the elder sensed a trick and was still scared. Kin Yan put his foot on the elder's back and explained that he was Fei Fei's father, and if he died, she would be very sad, which Kin Yan couldn't allow. With one savory kick, he knocked away all the dead and 1 living elder at once. As the fat man fell, Kin Yan once again promised Tom that he would definitely survive. However, the guy will hurt him badly. With a smile on his face, he severely beat up an elder who had passed out on a mountain of his fellow corpses. Kin Yan called out to Uncle Meng and Brother Xuan, signaling the end of the fight. They can go down safely. Their appearance did not have to wait long. Uncle Meng went downstairs, bringing Xuan with him, and then reported that the 4 elders were not the end of their problems. There are others they need to root out of the family. Uncle Meng personally volunteered to end them all by killing them. All of them, by the way, were already outside, as Meng was informed by Kin Yan himself. The crowd, realizing that they had been noticed, began to talk among themselves. They were considering whether they should take revenge for the 4 elders. After all, even they couldn't defeat Kin Yang, which meant they couldn't even handle it. One of them even decided that they needed to be on Master Yang's side initially. He was immediately grabbed by Uncle Meng's throat, scoffing at his choice and assuring him that it was too late to change sides. He was about to strangle the poor guy, but Kin Yan stopped him. He decided that it was not worth getting his hands dirty with this garbage and ordered only to expel all of them from the Yun family, then let them go. Uncle Meng didn't like this order and tried to protest. After all, they were all disciples of the 4 elders and were also responsible for the Yun family's calamity. Moreover, if they didn't destroy the roots, there would be endless problems. But Kin Yan assured him that everything was fine. After all, even if they gathered an army and went against him, there was nothing stopping him from doing the same thing he did with the elders. The crowd of former Yun family members were incredibly happy about this decision. They all knelt down in front of Kin Yan and promised to leave the mansion and never come back. It's been a while since the end of the last chapter. Kin Yan and Uncle Meng went to Mount Lu Yun, where they rode horses to the spiritual herb garden. After reaching this place, Uncle Meng noticed that now that the elders were dead, Kin Yan could finally visit the family's spiritual herb garden without any hindrance. The guy himself noticed that the garden looks quite ordinary. Therefore, he can't understand why Lin Baihuo would want to exchange the iron mine for him. His painstaking thoughts were interrupted by a shout from the front. Someone called out to them and then leaped with a huge sword right at Qin Yang. Uncle Meng recognized the man and reproached him for being blind, and then explained that the young man along with him was the successor of the Yun family, Yun Qingyan. Hearing this name, the man remembered the past years. Qin Yan had come here before and they had seen each other. Chen Wu, the guardian of the Spirit Herb Garden, apologized to his successor, bowed, and greeted him. Qin Yan also remembered this man. 3 years ago, he and Kai were returning from hunting, and he was holding their horse. Chen Wu once again begged for forgiveness, but Qin Yan convinced him that everything was fine and asked to be shown to the person in charge of this spiritual herb garden. The guy obeyed and led them to the entrance, where the man in charge of the place was waiting for them. He greeted the young master and apologized for not being able to meet him after a long journey. Chen Wu explained to Qin Yan that this person was the current head of the Spirit Herb Garden and that his name was Yun Hao. Yun Hao told Qin Yan that a few days ago, the people who came to buy medicine told him that the young master had returned. He wanted to greet the successor of the Yun family, but as the head of the spiritual garden, he had a lot of responsibility and thus couldn't meet him properly. Qin Yan asked Hao not to worry about it, since he had come to meet him now. He decided to get to the point and immediately asked if anything unusual had happened in the garden. Hao's answer was no, and he suggested that the young man go to the garden, but then Chen Wu intervened, reminding the leader that he had recently lost all the medicines, and there were also mysterious small footprints in the garden. Yun Hao yelled at his subordinate and told him to shut up, saying that he would talk to the young master about it himself, and then suggested that Qin Yan go to the footprints. He agreed. Qin Yan informed Uncle Meng that he would go with Yun Hao to the garden to check the animal tracks. At this time, he and Chen Wu need to gather all the necessary herbs that the successor listed on the list this morning. Uncle Meng obediently accepted the order. Chen Wu didn't mind either. He promised the young master that he would collect whatever medicines he needed. While Qin Yan was giving out commands, Yun Hao was up to something unkind. His eyes glowed with hatred, and a malicious grin adorned his face. After a while, Qin Yan and Yun Hao arrived at the footprints. The head of the spiritual herb garden continued to claim that the footprints belonged to animals, but the young master had a different opinion. After carefully examining the footprints, he questioned Yun Hao's statement and assumed that if he wasn't mistaken, these footprints belonged to a spirit beast. The head of the garden immediately assured the young master that he was talking nonsense, and the fact that many careless people say things that should not be said. Yun Hao began to openly threaten Qin Yang with violence if he dared to tell the others about his guess. However, the young master did not take the garden manager's threats seriously, accidentally hitting his head on the chin. In response to the threats, Qin Yan only chuckled and also gave him another chance to tell him exactly what had happened to the spiritual garden recently. He also added that Lin Baihuo would not hesitate to fight him for the iron ore. In response to this, a smirk appeared on Yun Hao's face. He exuded a malevolent aura, and also asked not to say that he didn't warn the young master. And if he wants to know the truth, then he can go to hell and ask the king of Yama, the god of death and the lord of hell. At this time, Qin Yan was thinking about how Yun Hao dared to be so arrogant, being only at the 8th layer of the star realm, and still basing his cultivation on pills. At that time, Yun Hao was telling his story. As it turned out, he was a slave, and even though the Yun family gave him a surname, she still treated him like a dog. But today, this dog is going to bite its owner. Yun Hao tried to hit Qin Yan, but he dodged it without any problems. He noted the high speed of the young master who was already behind him and was about to use the 7th star finger technique, but Hao repelled his attack with his own. He once again noted the high speed of his opponent, but also added that in terms of strength, Qin Yan was no match for him, after which an explosion occurred. Despite showing off, Yun Hao is sent flying a few dozen meters away from Qin Yan's punch and falls to the ground with a huge crash. He couldn't believe that a successor at such a young age would have such power. However, he didn't have time to think. Qin Yan had already caught up with him. He grabbed the garden chief by the scruff of the neck and began questioning him, intending to find out why he had betrayed the Yun family even though they treated him well. The latter, in turn, asked him to spare his life, and then he would tell him everything he knew about the Lin family. Qin Yan agreed and lowered the traitor to the ground, waiting for the answers. Yun Hao sat back and began his story. Just as the young master said, the Lin family wanted more than just a spiritual herb garden. He needed a spirit beast that had entered the garden by mistake. At this time, this same spirit beast was sitting nearby, listening to their conversation. Then Yun Hao explained why he had betrayed the Yun family. This is because the battle for the spirit herb garden is inevitable and the Lin family will definitely win it, after which the Yun family will be destroyed. Qin Yan visibly frowned and refrained from saying anything, letting the traitor continue his thought. He claimed that it was useless to kill him, and then asked if the Yun master knew what the Lin family used to fight for the spirit beast. The correct answer was a king-ranked magic weapon. This weapon is so powerful that it is suitable for catching a spirit beast. Qin Yan enters his divine mind, where he looks at a king-ranked magic weapon. Although this sword is not something special in the world of immortals, its value in Chanyu City should be higher than the iron mine and spiritual herb garden. In fact, Qin Yan isn't particularly interested in the spirit beast, but since the Lin family wants it, the Yun master suddenly wanted to take it under his command. Suddenly, a strange feeling came over him. He abruptly staggered to the side, dodging the projectile that flew straight at Yun Hao's head. The traitor fell dead, bleeding profusely. Qin Yan immediately recognized the instigator of the assassination attempt and guessed that he, too, had come to this world from the gap of time and space. Qin Yan recalled his past in the immortal world. He was incredibly exhausted and bleeding profusely. When he was returning from the world of immortals in the gap of time and space, he met a legendary beast, the ancient Chaos Beast. It looked like a huge three-eyed fox and had the power to devour the sun, moon, and stars. However, he came to this world in the form of a cute little animal, similar to a kitten. Qin Yan was perplexed, however. He quickly realized that it was because he had destroyed most of the beast's cultivation during the battle in the time and space gap. The Chaos Spirit blamed the young master for this, but the latter claimed that it was entirely the beast's fault. After all, it was he who suddenly attacked it. This answer got on the animal's nerves. Qin Yan took advantage of the moment to run away. The reason why he couldn't defeat the ancient Chaos Beast was because the young master only relied on his heavenly sword, but now that he didn't have a weapon, he was no match for this terrifying monster. The animal sensed the fear of its opponent, and a malicious grin colored its face. With just a single thought, he lifted chunks of rock into the air and aimed them at the young emperor. At this moment, Qin Yan realized that Yun Hao had been killed by this particular beast after all. The exact same rocks had pierced through his head. The young master deftly dodged each stone that flew at him, but then a huge block flew at him, from which there was no time to dodge. He gathered an aura around his hand and directly hit a rock flying at him. Dust rose from the impact. The Chaos Beast already thought that it had defeated the emperor, but the emperor emerged from the cloud of dust unharmed. He started to brag to the little beast, saying that if it really could devour it, it would restore its cultivation and be able to return to the immortal world, but it missed one important thing. I will be the immortal emperor. Can't he have the means to protect himself? After meeting a worthy opponent, the young emperor decided to use his heavenly sword scabbard. He solemnly pulled them out from behind his back. The Chaos Beast didn't consider them a serious weapon and just grinned. Also, his eyes changed their color to red. Qin Yan noticed that the Chaos Beast wasn't impressed with his weapon, but it only served to provoke him. The little beast ran towards its opponent and was about to attack, when suddenly the scabbard shone with a purple aura and released an incredibly destructive force. After Qin Yan's punch, a huge crater was formed in front of him, with the defeated Chaos Beast lying in the middle. The young master jumped right down to them and was surprised that the animal wasn't dead yet. He had never heard of anyone enslaving an ancient beast, so he decided to become the first. He started to add up the hand seals, but the animal just grinned, because normal submission contracts don't work for him. However, this didn't bother Qin Yan in the slightest. After all. He wasn't an ordinary beast tamer, he was an immortal emperor. He placed his palm on the Chaos Beast, after which a golden thread appeared on its neck and entered its body. The beast was perplexed. He did not understand how he managed to complete the contract. As it turned out, Qin Yan wasn't using an ordinary submission contract, but an imperial one. Each emperor can only have one subordinate, and it was the Chaos Beast that became the subordinate, so he told him that he should be grateful. However, this news did not particularly please the animal, and he continued to show his teeth. In that case, Qin Yan reminded the spirit that if the emperor moved his hand, the beast's soul would be destroyed. The emperor can control the life and death power of his subordinate, and when receiving damage, he can transfer it to his beast. It is also possible to transfer the life of a subordinate to the emperor so that he can die for the sake of his master. The Chaos Beast realized what a terrible situation it was in and bowed to its new master. At the sound of the battle, the Garden guard Chen Wu immediately rushed over. He was shocked when he saw the huge crater, immediately called out to young Emperor Qin Yan, and immediately descended to him. He immediately knelt down and asked where such a large kit came from. He grabbed his newfound chaos beast and got to his feet. Right after that, Chen Wu started pestering him with questions. He saw You-Know-Ho's dead body upstairs and wondered if Qin Yan was okay and if he needed to call a doctor. The young emperor reassured Chen Wu by telling him that Yun Hao had tried to kill him and betrayed the Yun family. However, he now accepts Chen Wu into the Yun family. He didn't have this opportunity before, but now he welcomes him into the family. Yun Wu was shocked and immediately knelt down. He swore his loyalty to the young master. At this moment, Qin Yan realized that he had almost exhausted his strength in the fight against the ancient spirit of chaos. He should recover as soon as possible and make pills to break through to the next level. He ordered Yun Wu to protect him until they reached Qianyu. The man obeyed. The day of the duel came. A huge crowd gathered in the city square, eager to see this fight. The crowd was talking among themselves, thinking that Lin Hao could easily defeat Qin Yan, since he was currently the first genius in Tianyu City. Blows on the drum marked the beginning of the battle. The host invited a Lin family member, Lin Baihua, to the ring. Although he is not the son of the Lin family elders, he is still very strong. This means that there might be other equally talented people in the Lin family. The host is confident that Lin Hui will win this match. If he failed, he would have to hand over the Wu Yin Iron Mine to the Yun family. Yun Qin Yan was invited to the ring next, but he wasn't there. The crowd began to whisper. Some people thought that Qin Yan was afraid and didn't come to the duel. Lin Hui counted as well and turned to the head of the Yun family. They agreed that if one of the participants does not come to the fight, then the victory is automatically given to the incoming fighter. This means that the spiritual garden belongs to the Lin family from now on. He stretched out his hand towards the chapter, but suddenly, Qin Yan fell from the sky directly onto his palm. He apologized to the opponent because he didn't see him under him. The host tried to help the enraged Lin Hua, but the latter pushed him away, claiming that he didn't need help. The opponents dispersed to different sides of the arena. The crowd began to discuss the young master who had arrived. They believed that Qin Yan was still at the 5th level of cultivation and claimed that he was the first talented person in Tianyu City, but right now, he wasn't as good as Lin Bai. The host ordered to get ready. Lin Huo confessed to Qin Yan that he had been waiting for this day to kill him. The young master reciprocated and also added that he would avenge his brother. The duel started, and Qin Yan charged straight at the opponent. Lin Hui immediately used the purple fist technique, but he was too slow, and Qin Yan struck first. The impact was so strong that Lin Hui was sent flying several meters away. The crowd couldn't believe what they were seeing. Lin Hui himself was flying to meet his defeat. If he falls from the arena, the victory will automatically be credited to the Yun family. However, after flying a few more meters, he drew his sword and used it to stop his fall. Lin Hui admitted that he didn't think Qin Yan was so strong. He underestimated him. After that, he added that there was no chance for the young emperor anyway, because he was going to use his sword. It was the Lin family's legendary sword, the Purple Thunder Sword. The Yun family head was disappointed in such an act. In order to defeat Qin Yan, they decided to use high-level weapons. One of his confidants offered to give Qin Yan a weapon of the same high level, but the old man, after a little thought, refused, considering that the victory is still for the young emperor. Lin Hui overheard their conversation and asked the headmaster to hand over the spiritual garden of medicine to him so that he wouldn't kill Qin Yan. Otherwise, he's finished. Lin Hui struck clearly at the spot where Qin Yan was standing. Yun Wu was scared and was about to intervene, but the family head stopped him and reassured him that the young master was fine. This was indeed the case, and Qin Yan calmly dodged the attack. When Lin Hui noticed this, he put it down to luck and promised Tom that he wouldn't be able to dodge the second attack. However, the young master also calmly dodged both the second attack and the third one that came right after it. After a series of dodges, Qin Yan was surprised to see that his scabbard was beginning to absorb the energy of the Purple Thunder Sword. As Lin Hui ran towards his opponent, the young emperor took stock of the situation. Almost all of the energy from the Purple Thunder Sword has been drained, and the scabbard has continued to absorb it, but the scabbard is now too weak and takes a very long time to absorb energy. Lin Hui noticed Qin Yan's haughtiness and became even angrier. He was ready to tear it to pieces with his bare hands. However, before his next strike, he gave Qin Yan time to run away. However, he only replied that it was Lin Hua who needed to run. Qin Yan moved almost right up to his opponent with incredible speed before the latter swung and grabbed his hand, then squeezed it with incredible strength. Lin Hua dropped the purple thunder sword, then Qin Yan broke his arm and pushed him away with a powerful kick, catching the sword in one go. Lin Hua almost fell off the stage, but he recovered in time. Meanwhile, the audience couldn't believe their eyes. The purple thunder sword received Qin Yan. The young emperor himself said that this sword was their family's pride, but it didn't fit Lin Hua at all. Stepping on his chest, he added that the purple thunder sword had chosen him as the host, not Lin Hua. Meanwhile, Lin Hua himself was recalling their battle 3 years ago. That day, he was also defeated by Qin Yan. All the eyes of Tianyu City's residents were focused on him alone. Then invite his strength, celebrated his victory, and wished that their family would have a man of equal ability. Nothing pleasant was waiting for him at home either. His own father called him a weakling and hit him a couple of times. After that day, Lin Hua understood what it was like to be humiliated. If he couldn't defeat Qin Yan today, then he would be called weak again, so he was going to take some special pills. His father tried to stop him, but to no avail. The audience also noticed that Lin Hua was about to take the demon pills. This pill should increase his strength by half for a short time, but the price is too high. Anyone who takes this pill will receive an effect that can never be removed. Lin Hua asked his father not to worry because he would not allow their family to be humiliated and swallowed the pill. He instantly felt a surge of strength and believed that Qin Yan's death was inevitable and his family would never be humiliated. The young emperor also noticed that even though Lin Hua was shameless, he was willing to take the forbidden pill and sacrifice himself for the sake of his family. Originally, he wanted to cut off Qin Yan's arm, then destroy his cultivation and let him experience what Qin Yan's brother had experienced, but since he was fighting for his family, he was willing to make his death painless. Lin Hua was amused by Qin Yan's statement. He even thought that he was joking, saying that he would kill him without pain. At this time, the audience was talking among themselves. They thought Lin Hua had a good goal, but for that, he had stooped to the dreadful thing of taking the demon pill. Lin Hua blamed Qin Yan for making him go down this wrong path. And if he didn't defeat the young emperor now, he would regret it for the rest of his life. A purple aura formed around him, and he pounced towards Qin Yan. The latter, still standing on the spot, waved the newly acquired purple thunder sword. Before Lin Hua could react or feel anything, he turned into an ice statue, and then shattered into many small fragments that flew in different directions. As promised, Qin Yan granted Lin Hua a painless death. The audience was shocked. Some of them were even terrified. After all, the young master had defeated his opponent who had taken the demon pill. Suddenly, a senior elder of the Lin family entered the arena, intending to avenge the death of their best warrior. However, nothing sensible came of it. Qin Yan calmly pushed him away with his foot, explaining that this was a battle of life and death, and he had the right to do whatever he wanted in it. One of the elder's advisors tried to calm him down. Although they don't want to admit it, no one from the Lin family can compare to Qin Yan right now. Biting his lip, the elder still had to accept the Yun family's victory in this duel, and now the Wu Yin iron mine was theirs. Since the Lin family was the first to want to fight and ended up losing, it brought a huge profit to Qin Yan. He intended to take the purple thunder sword for himself, but the Lin family's chief elder objected. In response, the Yun master suggested that the old man buy this sword. However, he wasn't interested in huge amounts of silver, only 2 high-level pills, 10 yuan pills, and 2 silver tickets. However, he was called out by the head of the Yun family. He warned the youth that the sword he wanted to sell was worth less than the pills he was offering. If you sell the purple thunder sword in the market, you will get about 10,000 silver, and for selling 1 high-level pill, you will get 1,200,000 silver. The chief elder of the Lin family was surprised by this information. Also, apart from the high cost of pills, silver tickets also had quite a bit of value, as much as 100,000 silver apiece. However, he had no choice but to send one of his subordinates to the Duke of Yun with tickets and pills. After making the deal, Qin Yan still gave Chief Elder Lin the sword and left the battlefield. As Qin Yan left the battlefield, accompanied by his subordinates, he reminded the elder that they needed to send someone to seize the Wu Yin iron mine. He told the young man not to worry, because he would take action as soon as possible, and also questioned his decision to return the purple thunder sword to the Lin family. After all, this is a high-level weapon. Lin Hua was too inexperienced in using it, however. If the head of their family used it, then things might end badly for the Yun family. In response, Qin Yan only asked the elder not to worry about it because after killing Lin Hua, he was just a piece of scrap metal. At this moment, the Purple Thunder sword breaks right in front of the Lin family head's hands. He was filled with anger and started to accuse Qin Yan of all the deadly sins, but then a pain shot through his chest, causing a river of blood to flow out of his mouth as well. The Lin family's followers were shocked and immediately rushed to their leader's aid. After a while, Qin Yan and his subordinates arrived at the Yun family mansion. He informed the elder that he wanted to go on a long journey, find his parents, and increase his strength and cultivation. During his absence, he trusts him with leadership over the Yun family. The elder was surprised by this statement, but he didn't dare refuse it. Since it was entrusted to him by the emperor himself, he is willing to do whatever is necessary to lead their family. After that, Qin Yan gave his brother a special pure medicine that was much better than the usual ones. If he takes this pill, his damaged meridians will be instantly restored. His brother couldn't believe that he had such powerful drugs. The elder was also surprised and asked the youth if he was an alchemy master. Qin Yan only replied that it didn't matter. In fact, he had forced his ancient spirit beast to create pills. The young emperor passed the medicine to his brother and said that he still had enough, so let him take these pills and start practicing. However, his brother refused such a gift, thinking that they are much more necessary for Qin Yan because pills can also increase cultivation, and he is in no hurry to restore his meridians. But the young emperor persisted and retorted that he already had ways to raise his cultivation and strength, but first he wanted to restore his brother's meridians so that he could immediately start training, after which he poured a few pills into his brother's palm. The latter, seeing Qin Yan's insistence, still agreed to take them. After that, Qin Yan hurried his brother and said that he would help him restore his meridians, after which he began to transfer his powers to him. After finishing the procedure, his brother fell to his knees. Qin Yan's voice was surprised. He tried out his powers by gathering a sufficient amount of blue aura in his palm. After trying out the punch, he was sure that he had regained his strength. His spirit sea has been completely restored, and moreover, he is even stronger than before. The elder chuckled as he looked at them. He was glad that Qin Yan's brother had regained his strength, and that Qin Yan himself had become a master-level alchemist. After all, even though Lin Wei is now an extraordinary person, he wouldn't dare to compete with them. The brothers were surprised to hear this name. Qin Yan asked if he was the one who framed Brother Xuan, to which he received a positive response. As it turned out, Lin Wei has been a student at Tianyuan Academy for half a year now. Moreover, he's not just a disciple, he was also directly evaluated by the Academy's vice dean and accepted as an internal disciple. Rumor has it that he broke through the first layer of the moon 3 months ago and was also recognized by the city's official imperial family. Since Qin Yan was obsessed with training, he might not know much about Tianyuan Academy. This academy is the direct power of the Tianyuan dynasty's royal family, and it is the first big academy of their dynasty. All of her disciples have great status, and even in the face of the emperor, they have the right to kneel down. Even an external disciple's cultivation in this place can reach the speed of 1,000 miles a day, not to mention Lin Wei, who is a personal disciple. And now, after the Yun family humiliated the Lin family, Lin Wei will definitely come back for revenge. Therefore, in order to stop him, Qin Yan must join the Alchemist Association. However, Qin Yan reassured the elder, not considering Lin Wei a serious danger. To the young emperor, Tianyuan Academy is just a trash academy. He's going to wait for Lin Wei here in a month. If he didn't come, then he would go to Tianyuan Academy on his own to avenge his brother. He ordered his brother and elder not to have anything to do with the Lin family this month, after which he went about his business. 3 days later, Qin Yan, along with his ancient spirit beast, started refining a new batch of pills. It took a lot of time and effort, but he managed it, and they were ready. He noticed that only very talented people could create such pills, and then he praised the ancient spirit beast, which he undoubtedly liked. Qin Yan also decided to share these pills with the beast for helping him so much. Both of them swallowed a few pills, after which Qin Yan broke through to the 6th layer. He didn't expect to be able to advance to a new stage in just 3 days, and was convinced that the pills really worked. However, it takes a lot of effort to create them, so Qin Yan and the ancient beast need to work together to restore their cultivation. The animal agreed with this, and together they went hunting for wild animals. After reaching the beast forest, Qin Yan and his ancient spirit beast went hunting together. This forest is full of rare herbs, which are usually very difficult to find. As they wandered through it, Qin Yan reasoned about his strength. He managed to break through to the 6th layer in just 3 days, and it really helped him recover. Lin Wei may have some support, but it doesn't matter to the young man. He thinks he can match them all. But he also understands that you shouldn't underestimate your opponent. Lin Wei should be stronger than Lin Hua, and he was also appointed as the next heir of the Lin family. In this month's time, Qin Yan must recover his cultivation as soon as possible. He intends to show all the families from Tianyuan Academy that they are all trash. Nor did he expect that he would have an ancient spirit beast that could emit heavenly fire. In this world, such beasts are quite rare. Even in the world of immortals, finding them is not an easy task. The cosmic fire itself is perfectly suited as an alchemy furnace, allowing you to create high-level pills on it in just a few minutes. Perhaps another emperor who has lived for 10,000 years will never know that the strongest spirit beast in the world will grow in the body of this little beast. The young man's thoughts were interrupted by an unexpected predator attack. It was a beast of the 9th layer of the Star Realm that had risked killing Qin Yan. He leaped at the young master, but he didn't even think to move until the animal was almost upon him. At that moment, Qin Yan leaped into the air and hit the beast's head, causing it to fall unconscious. The young emperor noticed the creature's boldness when suddenly a spirit beast ran up to him and asked him to take the tiger's soulstone. He agreed, noticing how much the animal wants to restore its strength. Qin Yan used his power on the Star Realm 9th layer beast and pulled out the blue sphere that was its essence. Qin Yan noticed that the energy contained in it was much stronger than the beast itself. He was about to say something else when he suddenly noticed that someone was following him. Calling out to the pursuers, he let them know that he had discovered them, so there was no point in hiding anymore, and they came out of hiding. 2 men emerged from the thicket, one of them complimenting Qin Yan on his sharp eyesight. Even though he and his brother were hiding, he still noticed them. However, Qin Yan explained to them that people with such weak cultivation were easy to spot. In response, the bald man just grinned. He was on the 9th word of the Star Realm, and his brother was on the 1st layer of the Moon Realm. They threatened the young emperor that if he wanted to stay alive, he must give up everything of value that he had. The bald robber asked his brother to wait while Tut took everything of value from the youth, along with the essence of the 9th layer. He is sure that their master will be happy with such an offering, and will probably reward it. However, his brother reminded him that if their master found out that the soul was stolen, they would become eternal servants as punishment. This did not stop the bald man, and he asked his brother not to worry. He thought about the risk, and even if he was punished, he would still be loyal to master. Qin Yan only laughed when he heard their conversation. This displeased the highwayman and angered him. Qin Yan explained that he was laughing because of them. If they have the power, then it means that he should show it and not scratch his tongue. But it seems that all the bandits in this city can only talk nonsense. However, they dared to want to steal the Yun family's treasures, so they only deserve to die. The young emperor was instantly at the bandit's side and sent him flying to the nearest tree with a single blow. He didn't have the strength left to stand up. Seeing Qin Yan's strength, the second highwayman bowed his head and begged for mercy. In response, the young man demanded something from him in exchange for his life. The robber was not at a loss and pulled out a map from under his clothes, where, according to him, the location of the heavenly fire is marked. Qin Yan was surprised by this. It can't be that one of the most powerful lights about the universe has appeared in this place. He picked up the map and started looking at the area depicted on it. While he was distracted by the map, the rogue decided to make a surprise attack. His palm was overflowing with a purple aura, and he was already swinging at Qin Yan, but Qin Yan immediately noticed the attack. Despite this, the rogue did not stop and continued to attack. The bandit's strike was too slow, which was exactly what Qin Yan noticed. However, he didn't stop and continued to attack. He was surprised that the youth was still holding up against his attacks and decided to show him his strongest punch. However, before waiting for the reception, Qin Yan broke the robber's arm. He noticed that the man was talking too much and then threw him back a few dozen meters. The robber's body smashed through several trees, leaving only ugly stumps behind, and then crashed into a rock. He couldn't believe Qin Yan's strength. The young man was clearly only at the 6th layer of the Star Realm, yet he still managed to withstand its attacks. However, Qin Yan explained to him that the techniques used by the rogue were just trash. He had seen this technique many times in the immortal world, and the technique that the emperor himself uses, trash like this rogue will never know. At this moment, the rogue realized that this was no ordinary person, but he didn't have time to finish his sentence and died on the spot. The disappointed Qin Yan told the already dead body that he could tell that he was the Emperor of Immortals and regretted that he didn't have time to explain to him who he really was. However, if the Ro tried to get the map back, it might actually be a real one, which means that there really is a cosmic fire somewhere nearby. After calling out to his ancient spirit beast, he went in search of it. On the way to the place marked on the map, he talked with his pet. He decided that this heavenly fire would go to him, since his spirit beast is an ancient creature that causes chaos in the universe. The animal was depressed, but his master promised him that in the future they would find a heavenly fire for him. Qin Yan asked him to trust him, and he would definitely fulfill his promise. The animal agreed, but it also wanted to eat. Qin Yan noted that the ancient spirit beast was still hungry and promised him that they would definitely hunt, but first they would have to find the treasure. After a long time, they wandered into the depths of the Beast Mountains and finally found the place where the fire was located. Using one of his techniques, he opened a passage inside. Qin Yan noticed that this place was very heavily covered in an illusion, so it wasn't surprising that it couldn't be found for thousands of years. If the young emperor didn't have knowledge from the immortal world, it was unlikely that he would have been able to find this place so easily. They hurried inside. Qin Yan was currently thinking about this place. He had never heard of a terrifying talent in this mortal world, but this blue lotus fire was sealed here, which meant that the mortal world wasn't as simple as he thought. Blue lotus fire is a fire from the depths of the Earth's lava, although it only ranks 20th in the top. There aren't many people with heavenly fire in the top 10 immortals. Among them is Xuan Huangyan, who belongs to the Yuan Empire and has the highest rank. But even if it's him, he can only rank 49th in the heavenly fire. In other words, it can hide the existence of the Blue Lotus. Even if they haven't reached the 10th degree of an immortal emperor yet, they aren't much different. In order to regain his strength, Qin Yan must obtain this fire, and then he will be able to conquer the entire universe. Qin Yan and his ancient spirit beast headed towards the location of the cosmic fire. After walking a couple more miles, they were still able to find it. When Qin Yan got close to him, he was embarrassed. Even though he's standing so close to it, he doesn't feel anything at all. This means only one thing: a seal is placed on the fire. It was a dragon formation seal, and it was quite strong and impenetrable. Qin Yan wasn't sure if he could take it off, but the only way to find out was to try. He used his powers to break the dragon formation seal. After a small explosion, the seal was indeed lifted. After that, the blue fire started to change and a terrible grimace appeared on it. Qin Yan was also glad that only the soul of the Blue Lotus was trapped in this cave. Soon, the blue flames increased in size by several times, raising the air around them. Qin Yan was satisfied with what he saw. The power inherent in this soul was 3 times higher than he had imagined. Suddenly, the flame started to speak. Wu decided that the person who saved him was very extraordinary, but all he saw in front of him was a pathetic ant. However, when he looked closely, he saw the Emperor's soul in the body of the person in front of him. No wonder he was able to save it. The Blue Lotus soul decided to obtain Qin Yan's soul in order to regain its body. The ancient spirit beast was clearly frightened, and its master noticed it. He was surprised that such a powerful creature was afraid of the blue flame. The Blue Lotus soul was surprised that the person in front of her had the courage to ignore him and promised that he would erase him from this world. He tried to attack, but suddenly Qin Yan used one of his abilities, causing the flame to shrink to the size of a palm. The Blue Lotus soul hadn't expected this turn of events. Moreover, her technique couldn't absorb Qin Yan's soul. She asked who he was, but the young emperor replied that anyone who dared to eat his soul was not worthy to know anything and only death awaits him. Qin Yan absorbed the Blue Lotus soul, then broke through to the 7th layer. Qin Yan was disappointed. He hoped for more. If the Blue Lotus body was here, it would definitely allow him to instantly break through to his innate soul. But it doesn't matter, because now the young master has the Blue Lotus fire. Qin Yan asked the flame where his real body was. He replied that 3,000 years ago, the most powerful man on this earth freed his soul from his body, then chained his soul in this cave, and hid the body in the academy. Qin Yan answered if he meant by the most powerful person of the Aurora Sword God. The answer was yes. The Aurora Sword God is praised as the most powerful under the starry sky. This means that where there is a starry sky, it is invincible, including this world. Therefore, this person was considered the strongest in the Star Continent, who possessed extremely strong strength. However, there are rumors that he left the Star Continent long ago, but Qin Yan had never heard of him in the immortal world. He began to think that he was the Aurora sword god who had entered the netherworld, but he quickly pushed all thoughts aside because his current goal is to search for the Blue Lotus fire body. And since the body is in the Starry Sky Academy, it means that the first thing he should do is go there. On his way out of the forest, Qin Yan overpowered a huge snake and pulled out its essence. He also thought that if he continued to practice continuously at this speed, killing and refining beasts for half a year, it would still be difficult for him to break through. He decided that if he wanted to match the students from Tianyuan Academy, he needed to become stronger and go deeper into the forest. Suddenly, an explosion occurred near him. Qin Yan immediately knew that there was a battle going on nearby. After walking a couple of miles, he noticed a crowd of several people surrounding one fighter, but he couldn't tell if they were bandits or treasure hunters. 6 people in the 9th layer of the Star Realm are trying to defeat one person in the 2nd layer of the Moon Realm. Qin Yan noticed that this warrior had consumed something before the battle, because looking at his face, it was obvious that he was only motivated by bloodlust. The guy beat up the attackers with ease, while Qin Yan continued to watch. He'd assumed that he had used a forbidden technique that destroyed his mind as well. Moreover, the forbidden techniques also cause their victims to have violent hallucinations that make them unable to distinguish reality from illusion. At that moment, the madman noticed him and jumped in his direction. Qin Yan noticed that if he was hit by the 2nd layer of the Star Moon, he would probably die. As the madman flew at him, he laughed. He shouted that the Qingshan fruit was now his and all the disciples who looked down on him should die. He tried to attack the young emperor, but the latter easily dodged each attack. As he continued to dodge, he thought about his opponent. The Qingshan fruit blooms only once every 300 years. Although they can instantly increase the cultivation of anyone below the 5th layer, every time such a rare fruit blooms, a guardian beast will appear next to it. After another dodge, Qin Yan noticed the Tianyuan Academy embroidery on the madman, which surprised him quite a bit. The madman tried to use the wind claw technique, but again missed, and then received a knee blow directly to the chest. Before he could move away from the blow, the young master grabbed him by the arm and threw him down. With his body, the madman broke through several branches, then fell back to the ground and began coughing up blood. He didn't understand how he had received such serious injuries. A disciple of Tianyuan Academy finally emerged from the shackles of illusions. He asked Qin Yan for help, in return for which he would help him enter the academy. However, the young emperor only scoffed at the wounded man's words and called them Tianyuan Ant Academy. The recumbent guy was shocked by such arrogance. He warned the young man not to think that with his power, he could do whatever he wanted, because the academy would definitely take revenge on him. With the last of his strength, he died. Qin Yan was surprised that all criminals say the same sentence before they die, as if they can't say anything else. Before Qin Yan went to the academy, he decided to learn more about the purple Qingshan fruit and decided to go in search of it, when he suddenly felt an unfamiliar Kai energy. After nightfall, the road of corpses led Qin Yan to a cave. This was the 3rd corpse on their way, as if they were fighting each other. The young master smelled the Kai of the purple Qingshan fruit inside the cave, and then went there. He also guessed that the guardian beast that can summon illusions is also inside. There was no poison in the air and no change, which means that this guardian uses high-level illusions to directly affect the human consciousness. The emperor's thoughts were interrupted by an ancient spirit guard jumping onto his shoulders. It was all the fault of the mountain of corpses that awaited them further. Qin Yan was outraged that the ancient spirit beast was afraid of the sight of corpses and demanded that it go on its own without climbing on its master's shoulder, but the latter continued to cling to its clothes. During the showdown, Qin Yan heard sounds in the depths of the cave. They turned out to be living people who were fighting each other under the influence of an illusion. They all wanted the fruit for themselves. These people were all students of Tianyuan Academy. Also among the crowd of young people, there were 3 elderly men who were not affected by the illusion technique. Qin Yan guessed that the guardian here was only able to affect the minds of people who hadn't reached the 4th layer yet. At this moment, the 3 men were talking amongst themselves. 2 of them offered to go back empty-handed, because their students will soon completely kill each other, because of which they will face severe punishment in the academy. After all, there were teachers who were supposed to protect their students. However, Gao, the 3rd teacher, was against it. He believed that they couldn't leave empty-handed. If they don't get the spirit beast, they must at least get the Qingshan fruit, otherwise they will face a much greater punishment than losing their disciples. Moreover, returning to the academy with the Qingshan fruit would help them avoid any punishment. Their conversation was overheard by Qin Yan. From it, he understood that the teachers of Tianyuan Academy were secretly using their students' lives to get what they wanted. The illusion of the spirit beast that guards the Qingshan fruit is so strong that the 3 teachers from Tianyuan Academy can't find it. Therefore, Qin Yan used the power of the blue lotus fire to enhance his vision, allowing him to see through illusions. This helped him discover the fruit and the spirit animal. They were both in the middle of the pond right behind the 3 teachers. The guardian that guards the fruit has become a spiritual devourer beast. His appearance here shocked Qin Yan like never before. This was the soul eater that is able to absorb spiritual power and bloodline, the Kuyan spirit rat. In the past, the 3rd emperor of the 10 immortal emperors had told Qin Yan about him. He said that the devouring beast looks like a rat, but despite its appearance, it is extremely dangerous because of its ability to absorb spiritual powers. He also said that this spirit beast is very difficult to find. Qin Yan never thought that he would be able to meet such a rare beast in this world. This creature has a huge potential due to its ability, which is why the young emperor decided to get it for himself. For such a purpose, he even took out his scabbard, the aura of which immediately began to be released around him. Qin Yan jumped down directly to the academy's teachers. They were startled at first, but quickly came to their senses when they realized that it was just a child. They started asking him where he came from when they noticed the scabbard in his hands. They immediately sensed the incredible power in them and considered this youth to be a disciple of the emperor himself. They understood that the value of this scabbard was much higher than the Qingshan fruit, so they decided to cancel it and bring it to the academy in order to avoid punishment. The old man ordered Qin Yan to hand over the scabbard so that it would save his life, but the young man only chuckled and praised them for their bravery. He promised them that if they could stand and talk after he released his aura, he would fulfill one of their requests. The aura released really scared the teachers. 2 of them wanted to escape, but the 3rd claimed that this was just a dirty trick. After all, he is only a boy with a very low cultivation level, and the aura belongs to his scabbard. The old man also noted that the scabbard was probably a magic weapon of the highest quality, or even higher, and then released a yellow ray from his palm, which Qin Yan calmly defended against with the scabbard. The 2 remaining teachers also used this technique, but Qin Yan still had no difficulty defending himself. He was disappointed by the puny strength of Tianyuan Academy's teachers. Qin Yan continued to fend off every attack from the Tianyuan Academy teachers with ease. When he got bored, he threw the scabbard in the air, intending to end it all. If he beat them all in one move, the devouring beast might not even notice. He caught the scabbard, which immediately began to release a huge amount of energy. The teachers of the academy didn't know what to do and just stared in fascination. Soon, the energy of the scabbard filled the entire area, creating a huge vortex. Even the teachers of Tianyuan Academy themselves couldn't believe in such power. One of them even begged for mercy, but his sobs were not heard by the gods. When the whirlwind calmed down, all the teachers were dead. They didn't even have bodies left. At this time, Qin Yan admitted that even though he had the strength to speed up his cultivation, he had a hard time using this technique. Right now, the scabbard not only absorbed the aura of his body, but also required a bit of life force. However, if he wanted to take on the devouring beast, he would have to hold on until the end. He has no choice but to use the Emperor's blood technique. He instantly moved to the Death Eater and addressed him. The people who dared to target him and the fruit he is guarding were destroyed by Qin Yan. He suggested that the spirit beast talk about something else, but the spirit beast trembled in fear. Qin Yan, thinking that the beast still doubted him, grabbed the scabbard to show him his true strength. He demanded a bow from him to show his acknowledgement of the Emperor. After ignoring the request, Qin Yan let out a bit of aura. He explained to the beast that he wanted to give it a chance. If he obeyed his orders, he would let him live. Otherwise, he will die. Without hesitation, the Death Eater obediently bowed to his new master. After that, Qin Yan gave him a drop of his own blood to make a life and death contract. When the drop of blood entered the Death Eater, it immediately fell asleep. When he wakes up, he will truly be someone who manages to become a spirit eater that can devour anything. Qin Yan noticed that he had lost a few drops of his blood and some vitality. This means that he will have to recover for at least a few days. If he could recover all of his strength as soon as possible, it would make the chaos fire of his ancient spirit beast unbearable. They also need to quickly make pills from the Qingshan fruit. While Qin Yan is in the cave, fighting with the Tianyuan teachers, trying to get the ginseng fruit and get the spirit devourer's favor, 3 unknown individuals have arrived at the doorsteps of Tianyu City. These turned out to come from the royal family. One of them, sitting on a white horse, called this city terrible and small, believing that the area of the imperial city alone would be larger. The second also added that according to information from the prince, this city is considered the worst, and the people who live in it are nothing more than garbage. After that, he turned to the old man on his right. This old man's name was Yun Ji. The man on the brown horse asked the old man not to worry about the difficulties that their Yun clan was facing, and also not to talk about them in front of the main imperial house. He also added that Yun Jae had been a martial artist for many years, and the main house wouldn't treat him badly. Meanwhile, the first youth became interested in this city. He found it interesting because it is where the Lin clan, of which Lin Wei was a native, is located. Even though he was born in such a terrible place as Tianyu City, he became a student of Tianyuan Academy and was also appointed as the third teacher. He also heard that Lin Wei had left the daughter-in-law of the Shanguan house here and recalled that there was a young Uni in the imperial city who was willing to replace the position left by Lin Wei. Hearing this, the old man immediately stopped his horse and dismounted. He bowed to the man on the white horse, who turned out to be a prince, and asked if he was tired. After all, they had come a long way. He replied that he had returned to the Yun family to choose a new military servant. At this moment, the old man started to think. He didn't understand why someone with a good talent in martial arts would have to be a loyal royal servant. A long time ago, the emperor had already come to the Yun family, and that day he took Yunji away and ordered him to stop serving his clan and go to his family to guard the prince. And now, after all these years, the prince sets foot on these lands again to find a new servant for himself. The old man didn't know what to do, but after collecting his thoughts, he said that he was willing to guide the prince to Tianyu City. Noticing the old man's strange pressure, the second guy began to suspect him. He turned to him in disbelief and asked if he was planning something. He also reminded him that their Yun family were just dogs that belonged to the royal family. With a haughty smile, he also mentioned that it was only because of the great honor of the king and princes that their Yun family had become elite. Yunji was embarrassed by such words and wailed pitifully that he would never dare betray the prince. The prince himself got bored with their chatter and ordered them to continue their journey and not waste time on idle arguments. However, if Yunji's grandson, whose name is King Yan, has become strong enough, then he is willing to make him his servant. The old man was surprised that he remembered his grandson's name, but before he could say anything, the prince replied that he only remembered the name because it sounded like a scream. While the prince and his servant were chatting at the entrance of Tianyu City, the Yun family mansion was being attacked. Uncle Meng flew into the wall with great speed, breaking a piece of it and falling to the floor with gusto. Hin Yan's brother and the elder were horrified. The elder took Uncle Meng and asked Yun Hai, the trader who had staged the attack, why he had betrayed the Yun family and sold medicine to other families. When he didn't get an answer, he got angry and repeated his answer, also mentioning the iron wolves that were behind him. The sneaky Yun Hai continued to ignore the elder and chatted with one of the iron wolves. He told him about the elder's serious injury and how he was very weak right now, so they shouldn't have any problems. If he beats this decrepit old man, then their Lin family will provide them with many precious and rare medicinal herbs. Iron Wolf agreed to this condition and asked to leave the elder to him. He released a blue aura, and clumps of aura appeared above his palms. He attacked the elder at full speed, but then the unexpected happened. Someone repelled his attack, and Iron Wolf, having received a serious wound, flew to the side, where his loyal subordinates managed to catch him. An old man in an orange robe, who seemed to have descended from the heavens, asked them how they dared to cause trouble in their Yun family. The leader of the Iron Wolves asked him who he was and how dare he interfere in their affairs, but there was no answer. So he threatened the old man that even though he was stronger than him, they would just crush him with numbers. The trader laughed at that moment. He showed his cards. Actually, he's not from the Yun family. He is free to go out and enter any of the families, and his real name is not Yun Hai, but Lin Zai. This shocked everyone present. The surprised elder asked Lin Zi that even if he was a spy for the Lin family, the Yun family had given him special privileges, and now he wanted to destroy them, and was working together with the Iron Wolves. Does his family know about it? But the man replied with a chuckle that he wouldn't dare do such a terrible thing without his family's consent. The wounded Iron Wolf also added that their families have been united with each other for half a year, and his father is the second head of the Lin family. The elder didn't expect to hear such an answer and fell into shock. The enraged Iron Wolf Master, who was already dripping blood from his mouth, ordered his subordinates to kill every member of the Yun family that stood in front of them. However, their fierce battle was interrupted by an order from the Prince of Tianyuan Empire, who had just arrived at the Yun family mansion and caught the attackers off guard. The Iron Wolves, the Yun family trader, and even the owners of this place, the Yun family members themselves, were shocked by the appearance of such an important person here. The prince asked the Iron Wolf Master if he really wanted to destroy the Yun family that was under the protection of the empire. They immediately began to apologize to the young prince, fearing for their lives and titles. He also asked them that if they were really sorry about what had happened, then why were they still here? He ordered them to get out of here as soon as possible before he changed his mind. Obeying the order, they ran towards the exit in fear, while the prince watched with a smug smile. After his outburst, the prince looked around the mansion. He couldn't find the right person among those present. He asked those who were in the mansion where Qin Yan was and suggested that he decided to run away and didn't want to see the prince. At this moment, everyone present only had one thought in mind. The prince of Tianyuan country himself came all the way to Chainu City to meet Qin Yan, the heir of the Yun family. Qin Yan's brother was the first to speak. With sweat on his face, he told the prince that Qin Yan hadn't returned from his training yet. The prince was disappointed by this response. He turned to Yun Yang and accused him of being too bold because the prince had come all the way to Chainu City and Qin Yan hadn't even met him. Qin Yan, who was sweating profusely, said nothing in response. Then the prince turned to Qin Yan's brother. He asked him if he knew that the prince didn't like to see trash in front of him. It seemed to him that he was being too disrespectful and asked him what his status was. Without waiting for any answers, he ordered his servant Yun Lei to put the impudent guy in his place. He didn't dare disobey and soon followed the order, punching brother Qin Yan right in the stomach. He was thrown a couple of meters away and blood came out of his mouth. Besides his brother, this blow was also felt by Qin Yan himself. Ever since he became the emperor, his senses had become very sharp. Thanks to this, he can feel a bad thing that may happen or has already happened. Right now, he felt that something terrible was threatening the Yun family and there was no mistaking it. He decided that no matter what happened, he wouldn't let the Yun family get into trouble. Together with his spirit beasts, he jumped from one tree branch to another, climbing out of the thicket. Although he had spent a lot of time and effort fighting the 3 Tianyuan Academy teachers, in a day's time, his energy would be fully restored. Also, thanks to the ginseng fruit that he managed to obtain in that cave, he was able to break through to the 8th layer of the Star Realm, which further increased his abilities. Now, if Lin Wei of the Lin family wanted to fight him, Qin Yan would be able to defeat him with just one punch. After running for about 10 kilometers, Qin Yan still managed to get out of the ill-fated thicket of the forest and could already see his hometown of Qianyu in the distance. He decided that he would be able to reach the city within half a day and hoped that whatever happened to his brother and uncle, he would definitely protect them and not let them get hurt, and those who dared to even scratch them, he would make them pay. Suddenly, he felt something strange. Turning around, he suddenly saw a white-haired girl with a huge painted bow and quiver behind her. In front of Qin Yan was a blonde girl with a huge painted bow and a quiver behind her. She looked at the emperor with a piercing gaze and did not take her eyes off him. Qin Yan tried to see her cultivation level, but it didn't make any sense. Even with the emperor's vision, he couldn't see her cultivation. Ever since Qin Yan became the emperor, there were only 10 creatures in the world that he couldn't see. 9 of them are guardians of the immortal world and an ancient spirit beast. This means that this girl's soul is a god emperor. This greatly alarmed Qin Yan. At this time, the girl started to speak and demanded the blue lotus fire emperor. This greatly surprised the young man, and he asked her how she knew that he really had the fire. Ignoring the question, she summoned a scroll to her side. Qin Yan recognized it immediately. It was a treasure seal. The girl explained to him that there was a treasure inside the seal that could make her arrow reach a speed of 1,000 miles, but she needed blue lotus fire to open it. Qin Yan, as well as his companions, were quite surprised. The girl repeated her request and demanded a blue lotus fire from the young man, but he apologized and refused her because those things that fell into his hands will always remain his, and he hates people who want to take them away. After accepting this answer, she decided that if she couldn't get the blue lotus fire peacefully, she would take it by force. She took out her bow and pulled out an arrow from her quiver, aiming at Qin Yan. He quickly analyzed the situation and realized that the bow this girl was using could be compared to a heavenly sword and could be ranked among the top 3 most powerful weapons in the immortal world. He wondered how on the Tianyuan continent there could be such a great warrior. Without further delay, Qin Yan pulled out his scabbard from behind his back. He had never imagined that he, an immortal emperor who had defeated countless enemies in the immortal world, would meet someone in the mortal world who would make him worry. It even made him smile, but there was no time to stand still. The battle began. The girl shot an arrow at Qin Yan, but he held out his scabbard, ordering them to stop this attack. However, the arrow simply deviated from its trajectory and was about to plunge into Qin Yan's neck, but he managed to react and dodge. The fallen arrow drilled a small hole after landing. Qin Yan admitted that this girl's arrows were indeed very powerful. He hadn't seen such a strong opponent in a very long time, and he liked it. Qin Yan, after making a high jump, decided to use the scabbard again. He released a huge wave of aura, but the woman dodged it without any problems, jumping back. While in the air, she took out her bow and was about to shoot when Qin Yan suddenly closed the distance very much. He decided that since the bow was so good, he couldn't let her shoot again. This means that it's time to move into close combat. However, the girl just grinned. She was waiting for her opponent's move and called him naive, asking if he really thought she could only use a bow. As if out of nowhere, she took out a small dagger. Swinging it, she was about to strike when Qin Yan suddenly reached for the scabbard again. He noted that no one had ever called him naive before and then blocked the dagger strike. Both of them started to release a large amount of aura. In the end, both of them flew off, but they still managed to stay on their feet. Their weapons shimmered with their aura. She admitted that Qin Yan's skills were quite good after all. Taking advantage of the moment, the emperor asked her where she came from, or if she was originally from the Tianian continent. An ordinary person wouldn't be able to withstand even 3 moves in front of his scabbard. But this girl was calmly fighting on equal terms with him, which couldn't help but surprise. The girl decided not to tell anything about herself, considering that some stranger does not need to know such details. After all, she only wants him to give her the blue lotus fire. Qin Yan tried to change her mind, saying that if she told her story, then so be it, the emperor might be interested in giving her one very good gift. But the unapproachable girl was still against it, preferring to solve everything by force rather than diplomacy. After accepting this answer, Qin Yan had no choice but to continue this battle. The girl threw aside her bow and dagger because she no longer needed them. She began to release the forces that were dormant inside her body. Qin Yan did the same, after which they once again ran at each other, causing a huge surge of aura with their punches. Their confrontation was like 2 fires raging, each trying to devour the other. The battlefield shattered, and Qin Yan and the girl decided to stop fighting for a while after being exhausted. They recognized each other's strengths. The already battered Qin Yan summoned the scabbard, which obediently clung to his hand. As he tucked his scabbard behind his back, he admitted that they were both pretty strong, and then they should stop there. The girl agreed to this proposal and then began to cough up blood. However, she was acting very strange. As soon as the blood touched the surface, it turned to ice. Qin Yan immediately understood that the girl was poisoned. He asked her about the real motive behind obtaining the blue lotus fire and suggested that she wanted to use it to neutralize the poison in her body. However, ignoring his question, she wiped the traces of blood from her face, pulled the bow towards her, and left, warning Qin Yan that they would decide next time. However, the emperor suddenly stopped her and explained that he only had the soul of the blue flame lotus, and even if he gave it up of his own free will, it wouldn't be enough to heal from the poison. However, he very well knew another method of healing from poison and agreed to tell about it, but of course not for free. He wants her to promise him one condition before he starts healing her. Meanwhile, while Qin Yan was struggling with the girl, a huge crowd had gathered at the gate of the Yun family mansion. They remembered that the Yun family had promised to fight Lin Wei, but for some reason, the Yun family didn't come out of their mansion hideout. Rumors began to spread that they were afraid of Lin Wei's strength, since he was a senior student at Tianyuan Academy after all. Some even heard that when the Iron Wolf arrived at the Yun family a few days ago, they were like turtles. However, the gates suddenly opened and the crowd fell silent. From there, a huge army of Yun family soldiers came out, each of them at least at the 6th layer. Cheers of praise towards the Yun family started to appear in the crowd. They were called one of the 3 main forces in Chanyu City, but people still doubted that they could handle the Iron Wolf sect. As the warriors lined up to form a corridor, the leaders of the Yun family also looked out from the gate. The elder noticed to his surprise that although the Iron Wolves wanted to destroy the Yun family, they hadn't appeared yet. Suddenly, there were jeers from behind the crowd. They were the Iron Wolves. Their leader rushed over on a spacious carriage and was surrounded by a crowd of their warriors. They'd forcibly dispersed onlookers from the road so that their leader could pass. The Iron Wolf sect's people were a whopping 2 times more numerous than the Yun families. Finally, the leader of the Iron Wolf sect arrived. His mask was different from the masks of ordinary followers of the sect with its darker color. He threatened them all with death, But the Yun family wasn't afraid. In response, they started calling their sect the Lin family's dogs, as well as calling them slaves. They promised that they would show the slaves where they belonged. However, the son of the head of the Iron Wolf sect only sneered at them, calling them unworthy. If only Prince Yun Fan was here, their master Lin Wei would definitely come to see him after all. Lin Wei had received news from the royal empire, and Prince Yun Fan's visit to Chinyu City wasn't for the sake of the Yun family.
The chapter begins with the exclamations of an angry old man. He turns to the opponent and says that his family's affairs cannot be resolved by outsiders. If he wants to fight, then there is no need for empty words. One of the two masked men addresses his companion by name and asks him not to speak to the old man again. For the hero, he was already dead. He wants to fight with him. The enemies began to attack each other. The elder was stronger, which his opponent did not expect, but he noted that with the help of Master Lin Wei, he was also able to break through to the second layer of the moon realm. The elder replied that this was why the opponent was still unstable, but was trying to fight him. As a result, the elder defeated the masked man. The crowd watching cheered and supported the old pavilion elder, calling him the strongest person. The enemy didn't want to give up. He was very angry and surprised that the old man could still have tremendous strength despite being crippled. But now the man was serious. Grinning, the enemy said that he now knew about the elder's strength, so the elder had to prepare for death. The crowd that was watching wondered how the man had managed to survive the elder's strongest attack. Some said that the leader of the Iron Wolves had reached the second layer of the moon realm. This meant that Elder Yun Jietai had the same strength as the opponent. The elder was trying to figure out what kind of Kai it was that was different from that of an ordinary martial artist. The enemy admitted that the old man was the first to put the hero in such a position, but this time he would not give him the slightest chance to harm. After calling the elder a name, the leader began to attack. When attacking, he asked if the old man was surprised by such a blow, and said to be sure that he would kill him. Magic enveloped Yun Jietai. He was immediately severely wounded in the chest, sitting on the ground in front of the enemy. The old man said that the magic used was Taoist, and he didn't understand how the enemy dared to use the forbidden magic techniques of this world. This method could result in millions of people being hunted. Iron Wolf asked again, and laughing, said that he would fight with everyone. The old man was asking how he learned the forbidden technique, but the man replied that he was not worthy to know. After the victory, the Yun family, in the enemy's opinion, should have more strong personalities. Above the battlefield, the main characters flew on a huge eagle, who assumed that the attackers were from the Iron Wolf sect. The leader of the Iron Wolves ordered his men to kill everyone, so that the Yun family wouldn't have a chicken or a dog left. They supported him, holding up their swords. The settlers came to their defense and shouted to stop them. The Iron Wolves began to attack. The chapter begins with the fact that the attacking Iron Wolves were surprised by the flashes of light that appeared and did not understand what it was. On the battlefield, the main character landed, who was angry that his family dared to harm. In a fit of anger, he said that he would destroy them all today. As the protagonist went on to attack the enemies, he continued that since they dared to harm his Yun family, he, Yun King Yan, would repay them 100 times over. Behind the hero, his companion appeared. One of the Iron Wolves laughed and asked if it was true that he wanted to get rid of everyone. The hero continued that he hadn't seen Yun King Yan in 3 years, and his ability to talk nonsense was even better. The leader didn't believe that the youth would be able to destroy them all. It was ridiculous to him. Grinning, the protagonist confirmed this fact, asking him to prepare for the fact that he will not allow the Iron Wolf to survive, as well as will not allow him to die easily. This greatly angered the opponent, who angrily asked Yun King Yan about what he said and exclaimed that the main character was looking for death. The young man took out his scabbard, hit the opponent, knocking him back hard, and then asked if this was all the strength of the Iron Wolves. The main character drew attention to his scabbard, which, when combined with the enemy's weapon, began to absorb his aura in order to restore its own. This seemed interesting to the hero, and he went on to speculate that the stronger the aura of the scabbard was, the faster it could absorb the aura of the other sword. He noticed that in the future, he would need to find a lot of magic items for his scabbard. Maybe if he absorbed another emperor's sword, he could find the heavenly sword again. The enemy, hearing the conversation, exclaimed how dare the protagonist get distracted during their fight. The youth chuckled, saying that he wasn't worthy, ordered him to stay there, and warned him that he was going to destroy the Iron Wolf sect. Attacking, the main character killed the enemy. The leader was horrified by the death of his son, and promised that he would kill Yun King Yan. The protagonist disdainfully replied to the leader of the Iron Wolves that it wasn't his turn, so he should shut up and stand where he was. The chapter begins with the fact that the main character only briefly asked his companion to detain the enemy. The girl pointed her magic arrow at the leader of the Iron Wolves. He didn't understand how he felt, who this girl was, or why he couldn't use the forbidden technique. At this time, on the battlefield, the main character dealt with the Iron Wolves. Watching all this, the leader knew that if this continued, his sect would soon be destroyed. But with Lin Xiaozu's support, he exclaimed that there was nothing these people could do. It was infuriating. The leader spoke to himself and asked himself to hurry up, because Yun King Yan was waiting for him. However, the main character said that he should not worry about his people anymore. It was his turn. Young King Yin asked the girl to stop, and she put away the arrows. The leader was confused by the effect of the magic. He turned to the youth and begged him to stop it, saying that in the future, the Iron Wolf sect would obey him. The enemy asked for their forgiveness. Smiling, the main character said that it was too late to ask for mercy and showed the dead people of Iron Wolf. The leader was horrified by what he saw. The Iron Wolf sect and all the elites were dead, just like his son, Hai Gui. The leader called the main character names. Not understanding how he dared to kill his elite men and his son, he promised to kill young King Yin. Hai Kui let out a shout and started attacking the youth, but he easily dodged, saying that the leader had already lost. But he still wants to fight, so the main character promised to kill his enemy without mercy. Iron Wolf began to shut him up, saying that he would avenge his son and the people, and began to use forbidden Taoist magic. The onlookers were horrified by this, but as soon as the magic got closer to the hero, he was able to deflect it. The leader wondered how this was possible. Young King Yan grabbed onto Hai Kui's magic weapon. He, as if distraught, called the main character, but called him interesting and did not think that the hero was so unreasonable that he dared to touch his magic weapon. This time, the leader wasn't going to let him survive and promised to send him to hell. The chapter begins with the fighters watching the battle talking about young King Yan's great confidence. Someone noticed that the main character is so strong that he was able to single-handedly kill all these iron wolves. But since Hai Kui possessed this forbidden technique, King Yan was definitely not his opponent. Someone was confident that the Yun family would be safe because of Yun King fighting the Iron Wolf leader. The protagonist saw that the latter was aiming for his arm, but he was sure that the enemy would not be able to snatch his weapon. After breaking the Taoist magic, Young King Yin heard the words of the enemy, who believed that they simply couldn't destroy this technique of Master Lin Shao so easily. The main character who attacked back said that nothing was impossible, and asked the enemy to stop mentioning the master's name, because he did not deserve to be the young man's opponent. Young Kin Yan continued that an unstable Kai like the leader's was easy to deal with. You just need to infuse some of your own Kai, which would cause a transformation that Hai Kui's weak body couldn't handle. The leader of the Iron Wolf, who didn't understand what was going on, was defeated by the hero. After the battle, Young Kin Yan shouted that starting today, the Iron Wolf sect had been eliminated from Tianyu City. The main character, turning to his colleague, thanked her for delaying Hai Kui for the young man. The girl replied that according to their agreement, she would help young King Yin, who in turn would restrain her cold poison for 3 months. And, since everything was decided, the companion wished to leave first. The main character stopped her, saying that not everything is settled yet, and he needs help so that no one interferes with his duel. The girl asked young King Yin about his request and asked him what kind of person had appeared on the platform. The newly arrived fighter addressed the main character, introducing himself as Lin Wai. He noticed that the guy wasn't dead yet. Young King Yin said that he had finally arrived. The surrounding people were wondering if it was young Master Lin Wai. They admired it and wondered if the newcomer was going to fight. Someone suggested that he wanted to take revenge on young King Yin for his brother's death. Someone said that they had heard about Lin Wai, who was at the peak of cultivation, so young King Yin might lose this time. There was laughter from someone watching. He was certain that young King Yin would definitely lose this time. Lin Wai spoke to the main character, noticing that he was finally back. He thought he wouldn't come back because he was afraid of him. The young master was curious about where the young man had been for the past 3 years. And he also admitted that half a month ago, he sent someone to follow the main character on Mount Wangshan. Young King Yan noticed that the opponent had a strange Kai Taoist magic law and was placed by a 3rd-level demon. Judging from Lin Wai's condition, his demon incantation technique wasn't a copy like Hai Kui's, but it wasn't a problem for the protagonist either. Lin Wai was asking why young King Yin was silent, if he was afraid of him, so he couldn't speak. Laughing, he continued that it wasn't important. To Lin Wai, the youth was simply worthless. The opponent also said that not only was he the leader of the Shangyuan family, one of the leaders of the 4 big families in the Imperial City, but he was also a teacher at Tianyuan Academy, and in the future, he would inherit the position of Patriarch of the Academy. Lin Wai noticed the surroundings, which consisted of one group from the Shangyuan family and another group from Tianyuan Academy, and everyone here was in the Moon Realm. There were also 3 masters present. The hero noticed that in the Shangyuan family, all 3 masters became teachers at Tianyuan Academy, and Lin Wai was going to let them destroy anyone they wanted. Just one word from him, and in 5 minutes, the Yun family would have been wiped out. The opponent knelt down on one knee, asking if young King Yin was afraid of him now. He continued that since the main character had killed his subordinates, he would teach him a lesson this time. Lin Wai told the youth to prepare to die. The chapter begins with the main character ignoring his opponent while playing with his pet. This angered Lin Wai, who asked why the main character ignored him when he was being politely spoken to. Young Kin Yan turned to his opponent, saying that no one would want to listen to this nonsense anyway. He also noticed that Lin Wai didn't change by talking too much, and it was disgusting for the main character. The youth was serious, saying that instead of talking, Lin Wai would rather die. The main character began to attack the enemy. Lin Wai laughed and noticed that he had attacked the person who was still talking to him. The young master accepted this and decided to show the main character his strength. Their forces collided with each other, and Lin Wai said that he had now advanced to the 4th layer of the Moon Realm. The people watching were wondering if Lin Wai was actually already on the 4th layer. Some people didn't believe in the opponent's level and thought that Yun Qingyan was in danger. Others confirmed these guesses, because Yun Qingyan is only 18 years old. Yes, he was able to kill Hai Gui, but his cultivation was low. If the main character came in 2 years, then perhaps he would be able to defeat Lin Wai. During the battle, Lin Wai quipped about Yun Qingyan's skills, asking why he couldn't fend off his attack. However, the main character easily dodged, thinking that the blows were quite weak, and if it wasn't for the opponent's body, he wouldn't have bothered with it so much. Lin Wai didn't see Yun Qingyan's cultivation, but he guessed that his cultivation was the 2nd layer of the Moon Realm. The opponent noted that despite the well-deserved title of the first genius of Tianyu City, the main character was far from it. Yun Qingyan was more talented than Lin Wai, but that, in the other's opinion, was in the past, ever since the young master became the son-in-law of the Shangyuan family. He was destined to become the strongest person in the world, and the protagonist had no chance. The opponent was angry, because Yun Qingyan looked like he was the best in the world. The expression he was showing was really annoying. So Lin Wai decided to get serious. He warned that if the main character can withstand 3 of his techniques, then he will forgive him. The action shifted to the Yun mansion. Standing on the balcony, the master said that Yun Qingyan was able to easily defeat the forbidden Hai Kui technique. The youth seemed quite capable, and Lin Wai's cultivation was also quite good. The servant asked the master if, since he appreciated this man, it would be possible to take measures to protect Yun Qingyan. An old man nearby asked His Highness to protect Yun Qingyan, since Lin Wai was a senior student at Tianyuan Academy. If Lin Wai seriously injured Qingyan, then Qingyan wouldn't be able to be the master's bodyguard. The old man was hit hard in the chest by His Highness asking who gave him the right to speak. The master continued that last time the old man couldn't get rid of Yun Xuan's trash, he was still disappointed in him. If the old man dares to speak again without His Highness' permission, then his family will be expelled from Tianyu City. Yun Qingyan's grandfather promised not to do that again. Since the matter was settled, the master wanted to talk about Yun Qingyan and Lin Wai. Lin Wai had recently shown his talent in the Imperial City, was awarded the title of Dragon Rider by the Shangyuan family, and was accepted as a core disciple by the Academy's vice president. If Yun Qingyan can defeat Lin Wai in a duel, he will definitely become the main topic in the Imperial City, and His Highness will only be able to make him a disciple. The action shifted to the battlefield, where Lin Wai asked the protagonist not to disappoint him and not to lose before he made 3 moves. Yun Qingyan asked again and decided that after holding off the opponent's attacks more than 3 times, it was now his turn to attack. It was further described that Lin Wai spent 3 years in the Imperial City and became the strongest in the entire Tianyu City. But on the other hand, Qingyan had killed an iron wolf, and it was rumored that his strength had increased over the past 3 years. Judging from the power radiating from Yun Qingyan, he continued to be a genius in Tianyu City. But no one knew if Yun Qingyan would be able to win. After all, Lin Wai is a core student of Tianyuan Academy, and he had the best teachers. The story turned to a duel, where the young master was surprised by the main character's desire to attack in response. But before that, Lin Wai was going to use all his strength, and if he could withstand 3 moves, then the opponent would spare him. The main character agreed with this because he wanted to know how strong the enemy was right now. Lin Wai, when creating his first strong attack, said that he hated the main character's arrogance the most, and hoped that the main character would still be able to laugh after being hit. After fending off the attack, Yun Qingyan reflected that these movements weren't enough to make the opponent's body visible, which meant that it needed to be stimulated. Grinning, the young man said that the opponent threw for tickling. This infuriated Lin Wai, who didn't understand how his technique could be countered. Yun Qingyan lied that the attack was a bit difficult, and he even had to exert himself a bit to resist it. Lin Wai began to like this. He sarcastically hoped that when the main character saw his second move, it would be as easy for him as it was now. Laughing, the opponent continued that Yun Qingyan was the first one to force him to use this set of techniques. Lin Wai wanted to see how he could hold up this time. The crowd watching exclaimed that it was bad, because Lin Wai was going to use his real strength. People began to run away, warning others to run, otherwise they might get hit. Someone didn't understand why they needed to run away. Others exclaimed that if he wanted to, he could stay here. But they would leave, because at such a moment, people from the Shangyuan family wouldn't lie. People asked us to hurry up and not block the way. Lin Wai was telling the protagonist to kneel down and beg for mercy. Otherwise, he will be killed. Yun Qingyan didn't understand why he was talking so much, so he should have just stopped talking and started attacking. An explosion occurred. The fleeing people marveled at the crushing power that a simple punch caused. The master of the 4th layer of the Moon Realm was too terrifying. After all, the ruined road at the gate was made of blue stone with a very hard texture. Some people thought that Yun Qingyan was dead, because he couldn't survive after such a thing. Others agreed with them, because if the city walls were damaged, what to say about the human body? People from the Yun family called Qingyan. The surrounding people noticed their panic. Even though Yun Qingyan had returned, his family still couldn't get rid of the humiliation. Many people expected that the Lin family would rule Tianyu City in the future. Lin Wai didn't know where the opponent had gone. He quipped that the protagonist's bones weren't as hard as his tongue. Lin Wai expected a worthy opponent, but he didn't think that the opponent would die so easily. bursting into laughter. The young master called himself the first genius of Tanyu City. The watching protagonist was annoyed by the large amount of conversation. He asked his pet if it had found an opportunity to snatch the magic view from the opponent's body. After all, 2 techniques were already behind. The beast spread its paws. The chapter begins with Lin Wai continuing to boast that he was able to destroy Yun King. He ordered everyone to kneel down and beg for forgiveness. Then he would just destroy their cultivation and spare their lives. Tired of talking, the main character hopefully asked the pet about whether the magic body had not yet appeared, but he needed to wait for Lin Wai's third move. Yun King Yan began to ponder that the Forbidden Taoist technique was a first-level demonic technique in the Immortal world. Lin Wai only had a copy with the essence of the original. The reason why it was classified as a copy was because of the cultivation method. It was further described that the body of a person practicing this skill generates other magical species, which are level 1 magical species. A person with a level 1 magic monster can give another level 2 monster. A person with a level 2 magic monster can give another level 3 monster. Theoretically, a level 1 magic type can be continuously expanded, just like viruses. 3, 4, or even 100 level 1 monsters come from it. Higher level monster species can devour lower level monster species. By devouring demons, you can get all their cultivation. The hero mused, although Lin Wai was highly regarded, there was no difference between him and a pet, because his so-called master could destroy the magic species in the opponent's body with a single thought, which would result in the loss of all cultivation and render him worthless. However, the main character thought that his and Hai Quin's technique was just terrible. This copy could only spawn 4 magic species, each of which could only spawn 5 level 2 magic species, which was much worse than the original technique. The pet distracted Yun Kin from his thoughts, and the hero decided to go down and continue with Lin Wai, giving the beast the opportunity to beautify the opponent's magical appearance. He was saddened that without practicing the Taoist technique, people couldn't directly take demonic species from other practitioners. They could only anger the person parasitizing the demons and allow the demons to appear naturally when the host is extremely angry and overwhelmed with all their power to forcefully absorb the advanced demon skills. Seeing the pet's questioning look, the hero reassured him and said that he remembered the absence of the blue fire lotus last time. In this match, the magic view will be exclusive to him. As Lin Wai continued his monologue, King Yan came down, saying that he had watched the show for a long time, and asked if he had finished. Lin Wai was surprised by the main character's appearance and didn't understand how it was possible. Young King Yan just wanted to test the opponent's strength, but the opponent was weaker than he thought, so he just twisted around and avoided this nonsense. This infuriated the distraught Lin Wai, who was intimidating with his third technique and vowed to kill the hero this time. Young King Yan showed disinterest in the dialogue, saying that the 2 techniques were already behind him, and he was still in excellent condition. The main character suddenly remembered that when they were kids, every time Young King Yan would stab Lin Wai would say that he would take revenge next time, but every time it would be the same again. The young man asked if he remembered the last time he had given him a post. Young King Yan said that 4 or 5 years ago, his opponent gathered all the young generation in Tanyu City and wanted to defeat him in front of everyone. Lin Wai launched an attack using the Imperial Fist of Total Annihilation. The main character was only unimpressed by a slightly interesting technique. Although he had the power of the 4th layer of the Moon Realm, the power of this technique was not lower than the 6th layer. The young man was thinking that he should take advantage of this opportunity, and purposely encouraged Lin Wai. Young King Yan's body suddenly felt numb, and he didn't understand how this could have happened. Lin Wai was asking if he didn't feel that not only could he not use Kai, but his body couldn't move either. This happened because the enemy poisoned the main character. It was the poison hidden in his wrist. The toxin entered the body through the breath and imperceptibly paralyzed the nerves, making Yun King Yan under control. It was an ancient poison accidentally obtained by Lin Wai's master. Even a wind sword god without radiance under this poison would turn into a sculpture that couldn't move. Lin Wai considered it a great honor for Yun King Yan to die poisoned by this poison. The enemy struck. The crowd of onlookers said that the main character wouldn't be able to avoid it. Someone supported by saying that if the poison was really strong, Yun King Yan was already dead. This day was a day of regret. The watchers noticed that Yun King Yan had recently destroyed the Iron Wolf sect with his own strength. Less than half a day had passed since then, and now he would be reduced to ashes himself. The crowd noticed that Lin Wai was frozen. They thought that the disappearing Yun King Yan must have already turned into ashes, but the young master couldn't be in such a state. Lin Wai promised to kill the entire Yun family, but no one understood why he froze. The crowd running up to Lin Wai noticed that something was wrong. The chapter begins with Lin Wai being surrounded for protection. At this time, the protagonist, who was hiding behind the ruins, was thanking his pet for helping him. If he hadn't used mixed fire at the last moment to draw out the poison from Yun King, he would have already turned to dust. The pet showed the main character that he was able to get Lin Wai's magic weed and back. Gleefully, he said that according to their agreement, this time the magical appearance would remain with the beast. The storage bags will be split in half when they completely get rid of these guys. The pet shared a magical view. The young man explained this action by the fact that the heroes still had strong opponents, and this magical type could restore the main character's Kai, and the animal only needed half to break through. Yun King Yan agreed to this, but promised to repay the bounty next time. Taking a magical look, the guy promised that he would find a treasure for the pet as soon as he dealt with the enemies. The heroes ate a magic ball. Young King Yan left the ancient spirit beast to break through while he went to deal with the opponents. The crowd around the young master didn't feel any spiritual power and didn't know how the cultivation could have disappeared. Lin Wai saw Young King Yan and asked him what he had done to him. The main character just took out a magical appearance from it. After all cultivation came from the demon seed. Without it, it was nothing. Lin Wai didn't understand how the young man knew this. Young King Yan also noticed that the opponent was seated as a level 3 demon, and his vice president Shibo was seated by a person with a level 2 demon. Their demon was born of someone else. After telling the origin of the opponent's cultivation, the main character killed him. The people of the Shan family became angry and set out to avenge their young master's death. The action shifted to the prince's mansion. He had been informed that young King Yan had killed Ling Wai, and now His Highness could take him on as a disciple. The prince agreed, because the main character was very talented, even though he didn't come from the Yun family in the imperial city. A prince came to the battlefield, introducing himself as Yun Fan and saying that after Lin Wai's death, Young King Yan was chosen as the young master's disciple. He ordered the people from the Shan family to retreat. The main character resisted being a disciple of someone he didn't know anything about. Yun Fan was startled by what the youth was saying. Young King Yan spoke to Lin Wai's men, saying if they want to fight, then let them hurry. That girl was waiting for the main character. The prince, faced with ignorance about himself, said that Young King Yan was officially accepted as a disciple by Yun Fan, one of the 4 families in the imperial city. The protagonist could now become a member of the best family in the imperial city and rely on their resources for cultivation. Young King Yan told him to scram. He didn't have time to bother with him. One of the prince's retinue exclaimed how a slave could insult his master, and wanted to teach the young man manners, but his attack was easily repelled. The prince said that the main character had the power of the 4th layer of the moon realm. Can he rely on this sword to resist the 6th layer of the moon realm? Yun Fan noticed that the sword was a high-ranked treasure, and if the protagonist gave up the scabbard, they would be forgiven for their insults. The prince added that this would happen as soon as Young King Yan's meridians were destroyed and his cultivation was damaged, just like his brother's. This angered the youth, who remembered his brother Young Chuan. Yun Fan continued that Young Chuan dared to interfere in front of him, so he asked Yun Lai to break it. If the main character didn't want to be the same loser, then he had to obey. Young King Yan, calling himself the emperor, said that he had lived for countless years and there were only a few people who could afford to make him angry. Young Chuan is one of the most important people for the emperor. The main character claimed that Yun Fan shouldn't have done such a thing to brother Chuan. King Yan was angry and determined to deal with the enemies, wanting them to pay in blood. What made the prince laugh was that the main character called himself the emperor who had lived for countless years, and thought that he could match up to his ward if he talked nonsense. Yun Fan asked his entourage to sort it out. Yun Lai noted that the scabbard wouldn't always be able to protect the main character, and he knew about this magic weapon, so he was going to fight seriously. Young King Yan told Tom to shut up and slapped the entourage hard. He turned to the prince. Yun Fan began to ask for help from others and mercy from the youth. The prince was defended by the students and teachers of Chanyu City, who wanted to deal with the main character, avenge Yun Lin, and work for Master Yun while clearing the Yun family's honor. Young King Yan was scattering his enemies. They wondered how the young man could have such power. The prince reflected that he shouldn't have been afraid of the protagonist's scabbard. So Yun Fan shouted to everyone that Lin Wai was already dead, so the Shangyuan family and Tianyuan Academy wouldn't let everyone watching go. But if they help the prince and kill Young King Yan, then His Highness will protect them from death. Yun Fan continued that the scabbard may be a high-grade magic weapon, but it requires a large amount of Kai usage. Yun Lin's recent strike could have drained the protagonist's strength. Now was the perfect time to kill him. After accepting that they might be caught, and being encouraged by the prince's words, the people began to attack Young King Yan. The main character reflected that battle did indeed waste a lot of Kai, but he was still capable of fighting. Yun Lai stood up and said that dealing with Young King Yan was more difficult than they thought. Nearby soldiers detained the main character, so it was possible to leave. Yun Fan denied it, saying that he saw through the main character. The chapter begins with a statement from the prince of the protagonist's cultivation, which was in the realm of stars. Yun Lai didn't understand how this was possible, since Young King Yan was able to easily kill Lin Wai and the others in the moon realm. The prince explained that the main character had never used the Kai release technique before. The most powerful weapon in the mortal world is the Kai attack technique, but Young King Yan didn't use it in the battle against the Iron Wolf sect, Lin Wai, and against them. The prince noted that every time the main character was in pain, he used only his fists, legs, and scabbard. When faced with other people's techniques, he would easily avoid their attacks with the scabbard, but he would never be able to withstand a pure Kai attack. Therefore, Young King Yan was a fox pretending to be a tiger with a scabbard. Yun Lai acknowledged the successor's intelligence and noted that these details were not noticed by the ward. Yun Fan waved him off and told him not to blame himself for the protagonist being too slippery, but rather to join the fighters from the official family and Tianyuan Academy to kill the youth. Yun Lai ran to obey the order and shouted at the attackers to follow his family's order. The fighters complied, noting Young King Yan's strength and the peculiarity of it in Tianyu City. They were wondering if Master Yun Lai had a plan. Yun Fan did not order the attack with blind strikes, but with his Kai. Someone was indignant at this, because so the Kai will be depleted, but he was forced to obey. Yun Lai said that the main character was now a corpse. Yun Qingyan was thinking that if he continued to defend with the heavenly sword scabbard, his spiritual Kai would be depleted. Yun Fan realized that the main character was not a martial artist, but was dependent on his scabbard, which could absorb the Kai of the moon realm, but it wouldn't last long. The prince ordered everyone to attack the protagonist with their Kai until he was exhausted, and he told Yun Lai to finish Yun Qingyan when he was exhausted. The fighters were encouraged by the method of attack that worked, and praised Yun Fan's knowledge and vision. A few more attacks and the main character would have died. As Yun Qingyan repelled the attacks again, he thought that he could use the scabbard to barely block the Kai attacks. But he couldn't continue like this. The hero found it difficult to rely on himself alone to take revenge. Yun Qingyan gave the order for his partner to attack. A magic arrow flew out at the enemies. The prince was asking who dared to disrupt his plans. On the roof of the building, a girl appeared, whose influence began to weigh on Kai Yun Fan and Yun Ling. The prince didn't understand who this girl was or why she was helping Yun Qingyan, but he was willing to pay 10 times more than the main character. The girl ignored him. The main character began to ask his partner how many she could handle. He was told that with everyone, but his price was not enough for the girl. Yun Qingyan then wanted to deal with Yun Fan himself. The girl noticed that Yun Lai was in the moon realm of the 6th layer, so the price would be low. The main character said that she should not kill, but just hold for 3 minutes. He would kill them with his own hands. The girl agreed. Her partner shot out an arrow of pure Kai. The girl divided it and directed it at the fighters. Yun Qingyan went to Yun Fan and told him to prepare for death. The prince urged them to help him, because if he had a wound, none of them would survive. The girl ordered them not to move, otherwise they would die. Yun Qingyan was saying that it was useless to resist. On the day Yun Fan offended Brother Chuan, he should have thought about the price he would have to pay for it. The chapter begins with the successor calling Yun Lai for help and asking if he dares not listen to orders. The servant replied that it was very difficult for him now. The angle of the arrow flying at him was very sharp. As long as he had a trace of distraction, he couldn't escape anywhere. Yun Qingyan was coming closer with the payment for his brother. The angry prince asked if he thought he couldn't handle him. He wanted to show the protagonist the real strength of the Yun family's successor Imperial City. Yun Fan began to attack. Yun Qingyan wanted to repay his brother's pain by 10 and 100 times. Therefore, he began to take the soul of the successor. The prince's body fell to the ground, holding Yun Fan's soul. The protagonist talked about not letting her die so quickly. He wanted to seal the soul and make it suffer until death. The girl watching this thought that the youth had used a terrible method of revenge, and wondered how many more of these methods he had. She warned the hero that 3 minutes had passed. Yun Qingyan took out his scabbard and was about to finish quickly on the battlefield. He wasn't going to let go of anyone who dared to offend Brother Chuan. While attacking, the main character was saying that he had never provoked the Shanguan family and Tianyuan Academy. However, if they provoked him, then they can only die. The main character dealt with the enemies. The chapter begins with the protagonist being approached by the elite of his Yun family. Yun Qingyan reassured them, saying that he was fine even though he had spent a lot of effort. The main character's uncle would address him, saying that the battle was hard. Qingyan didn't have time to talk about it. Since uncle was the eldest, he had to lead the Yun family's guards to destroy the Lin family. It was also impossible to let the Iron Wolf sect go if they didn't destroy all the roots today. Then in the future, at the earliest opportunity, the Lin family would target the Yun family. The protagonist continued that after the battle, only the Yun family would remain in Tianyu City. Everyone agreed with him. The elder said that the deaths were caused by Lin Y from the Imperial City, but the Lin family's strength was not affected. With the current strength of the Yun family, they couldn't destroy the Lin family. Yun Qingyan knew that the spirit beast would soon break through and its strength would be enough to destroy the entire Tianyu City. A girl came up to him. He asked her what else she needed. She asked to suppress the cold poison for another 3 months. The main character pointed out that their current agreement should not have been in debt. As her partner took out the golden item, she said that within 3 months, she could guarantee that the Lin family, Tianyuan Academy, and Yun Imperial City's family wouldn't be disturbed. She handed out the Order of Pardon to the Alchemist Association. After all, she had once saved a senior member of the Alchemist Association and received this item as a gift. Yun Qingyan needed to hang the order on the door of the mansion. Then any force that dared to offend their Yun family would become the enemy of the Alchemist Association. After 3 months, the order was supposed to be taken away. 3 months was enough, and even if the Yun family wasn't disturbed during that time, the main character would destroy the enemies himself. The young man took the order, having agreed with the girl. 2 hours later, in the Yun family's practice room, the protagonist broke through the 9th layer of the Star Realm. Lin Y had cultivated a weakened version of the magic Taoist heart technique, and his talent was indeed quite good. But due to bad intentions, he wasn't able to become a good opponent. The main character cleared only half of the level 3 demons from the body. This replenished the spent Kai and helped break through to the 9th layer of the Star Realm. Yun Qingyan's strength was stronger than before. He thought it was time to go to Tianyuan Academy to find the Blue Lotus fire body. But first, he needed to solve the family problem. As he was leaving the room, he met the girl and was surprised that she was still there. The chapter begins with the fact that the girl was going to leave because the main character has recovered. Young King thought that she was helping protect the mansion for him. The young man thanked the girl and asked her to tell him her name, but she was getting further away from the guy who had identified her as a certain type of person. He speculated that the girl was practicing some method to treat other people so coldly. Suddenly, the protagonist heard a name, Ling Ranju. The girl asked the hero to remember this. He repeated the name again and promised to remember it. Yun Qingyan was hailed by the returning family heads. Grandpa said that the spirit beast was very strong. It helped open their eyes. The uncle added, exclaiming that the entire Lin family was destroyed, as were all the remnants of the Iron Wolf sect. Yun Qingyan confirmed the strength of his pet, calling it the best companion. The main character, when the enemies were destroyed, asked to be taken to his brother Xuan. My uncle said that only a young man could help in his situation. The action shifted to the Yun family's residence. The uncle and the protagonist were standing in front of Xuan's bed, which angered Yun Fan, after which Yun Lai used his soul to destroy his meridians and internal organs. The uncle continued that for the past few days, he and senior Yun Meng had taken turns supporting him with their kai to keep him alive. But they didn't dare let Xuaner wake up because they were afraid that he wouldn't be able to accept himself as an ordinary person once again. The main character realized that the death of the enemies was deserved. He swore that from now on, he would never let even his brother's hair get hurt again. Yun Fan and Yun Lai were both dead. But it wasn't enough for Yun Qingyan to make up for the humiliation and pain that Yun Xuan had suffered. The protagonist promised that he would shed the blood of the entire imperial family of Yun Imperial City to make up for his brother's pain. Fortunately, the youth had 2 purple 7 god pills made from purple kai and 7 magic fruits that he found when he was outside. These 2 pills were enough to restore his brother's meridians and dantian. The uncle was surprised by such a medicine and was glad that they could save Xuaner. The main character gave his brother pills that could cure him. Yun Qingyan turned to his uncle, saying that the only way to cure a broken arm was to use precious medicinal herbs that were dear to the family. After a while, the main character was going to list the herbs he needed and give him a recipe. The uncle was happy that the broken arm could be cured and encouraged to bring any medicinal herbs for Xuan. The main character agreed with this. As he walked forward, the young man spoke about an important thing that needed to be done. Yun Qingyan abruptly knelt down and greeted his grandfather. The young man apologized for not saying hello, because he was very worried about his brother's condition. The grandfather was moved by this and began to pick up his grandson, because he thought that he did not deserve to bow. Yun Qingyan didn't agree with the elder. After all, he had endured 30 years of humiliation in the Yun family of the Imperial City, and it was all for the sake of the family's safety. The main character gave Grandpa the Order of Pardon from the Alchemist Association, which will protect the family in Tianyu City for 3 months. Yun Qingyan resolutely said that he would train outside for 3 months, and when he returned, their family would no longer need to be vassals. From now on, the main character was the foundation of the Yun family. The heavens were in heaven, and the hero was on top of it. Anyone who dares to touch the Yun family will be hunted down by the hero of 9 days and 9 lands. All of them will be beheaded and their families destroyed. The chapter begins in the city of Aurora. The protagonist speculated that this was where Tianyuan Academy was located, where the Blue Lotus fire was sealed. Yun Qingyan thought about the fact that Grandpa was not under the control of the Yun family from the Imperial City, and also the family received protection from the Alchemist Association. Xuan's broken arm was completely repaired with the help of Kai and precious herb liquid, and his cultivation increased several times. Therefore, for the next 3 months, the main character could not worry about the family and try to return the body of the Blue Lotus fire. After that, he would be able to use many Immortal level items. This could help him develop in the shortest amount of time. However, Tianyuan Academy was quite old school, and with his current cultivation, tough actions were definitely not the best solution. Next to him, a guy was talking about the tough admission to Tianyuan Academy. Another told him that this was how the school could find many geniuses, like the recent incredible genius who had reached the Moon Realm stage at the age of 50. But the other man didn't believe him. It dawned on Yun Qingyan that he could join the academy as a disciple. It was easier and more efficient than working his way into it. The main character reached the registration point. He didn't understand why one place was filled with people and the other was empty when Oba Academy accepted students. One of the men talking nearby said that the general class accepts a lot of students. In just 3 days, thousands passed. Another replied that they, in turn, did not accept one in all 10 days, despite the fact that the total number of students was only 17. The men especially felt sorry for the 15-year-old boy who had reached the Moon Realm. He didn't want to take a look at the genius class, but immediately joined the regular one. The man noticed that the geniuses class had abnormal admission conditions, and added that people talked about the entry conditions of ordinary students compared to the geniuses class, like a child's game with toys. The conversation was abruptly interrupted by another man, who said to watch your words. The men laughed, saying that it was their habit to say that. The main character realized that he had found a place to register geniuses, which opens once every 10 years. Joining here was more difficult than a normal class, and if the exam wasn't passed, the student wouldn't be able to apply for entry for 3 years. So the place of entry was empty. Yun Qingyan was wondering how talented the geniuses of Tianyuan Academy were. The main character who came up was asked if he wanted to take the entrance exam for the genius class. But first, the young man was asked to fill out an information form so that they could prepare an entrance exam for him. Young Kingin wasn't sure if he should just fill out the form. One of them assured the young man and said that registration for the genius class depends only on strength and talent. Unlike the usual class, even filling out the form is like checking the family register. The first round was supposed to start immediately after filling out the form. While reading the completed document, the man looked up the name and age, but he was surprised by the status of the 9th layer of the star realm. The teachers of the academy were not happy with this. They thought that the main character was just playing with them. To them, he wasn't a genius hiding his cultivation, but a failure. At the age of 18, he couldn't even pass the normal class exam and didn't deserve to pass the genius class exam. But according to the rules, they had to arrange the candidate for the first round. One of the men wanted to get off on the main character, and the other told the guy that he would regret it. The head teacher called young King in for a round, determined to show him his ignorance. The young man turned to his pet, noting that he was silent, but was already cursed. He wanted to deal with them on his own. The chapter begins with the first round of the protagonist's exam, which was an open duel. The crowd of onlookers surrounding the ring was surprised that the senior had decided to personally take the genius class entrance exam. Someone noted that the appearance of the main character was foreign. Others laughed, saying that it made sense, since the people of the city wouldn't take the genius class test. There were those who knew about the 9th layer of the star realm. People reacted to this as nonsense and didn't understand how the hero dared to apply for the genius class. Senior teacher was going to suppress his power to 1 layer of the moon realm due to the hero's low layer. If he can beat him, he will be admitted to the 2nd stage of the exam. Young King Yan asked if the teacher was sure that he would fight against this power, to which he received a grin and confidence that such power would be enough. The senior gave the command to start first and continued talking. But the main character interrupted him with his attack. The teacher was angry and did not understand why he was attacked so suddenly, and even knocked out one of his front teeth. Young King Yin chuckled as he said that he had been given the command to start. Enraged, the teacher decided that he would use all his strength to knock out all the guy's teeth and see if he would be arrogant afterward. He thought that it wasn't enough and wanted to tear all the clothes of the main character and make him walk around the whole city naked 3 times. The main character wanted to see if he could do it. He was attacked by a teacher. Young King Yin reflected that with his personality, any threat would be treated as a duel until his last breath. But since the teacher was not determined to kill, the main character decided to play with him. The young man easily dealt with the teacher, asking if he still wanted to knock out his teeth and force him to walk naked on Aurora. In the end, young King Yan left the teacher without any clothes, so that he could walk around naked. The defeated senior thought that the boy was arrogant, but was able to defeat him with the power of the 6th layer of the moon realm. He might have potential in cultivation. The teacher also thought that he might have hidden his power when filling out the form. The other men from the genius class entrance asked the young master not to be angry with him, because he was actually joking. The main character was able to pass the first round and now moved on to the second. Young King Yan agreed out of respect for Tianyuan Academy to treat this as a joke and suggested that the next stage should be started. The main character was brought a rare gemstone in a chest without attacking power, but with a special ability to measure potential. The stone had 4 kinds of light: red, orange, yellow, and green. Each type of light corresponded to its own realm of stars, moon, sun, and the legendary innate state that is the innate soul. Putting his hand to the stone, teacher who explained that the 6 orange rays that appeared on it indicated that his powers were the 6th layer of the moon realm. After completing the strength check, the ball began to test its potential. The teacher pointed this out, saying that according to the stone, its potential is the 5th layer of the sun realm, who asked the young man to put his hand on the gem. If he can make him show the potential of the sun realm, then the main character will pass the 2nd stage of the exam and become a student of the genius class. The chapter begins with the hero's statement that the pearl, although magical, could only be tested up to stage 4 of the innate realm. Therefore, he asked about a person exceeding stage 4 of the innate realm. The teacher replied that even if there were some people who had a potential greater than the innate realm, it was impossible for them to come across such a person by chance. Tianyuan Academy hasn't had anyone with the potential of the nascent realm stage 5 for more than a century. In the entire Tianyuan dynasty, there haven't been innate realm creatures for more than 500 years. The main character confidently put his hand on the ball. The men were surprised that the pearl revealed a layer 9-star realm, because they thought that young King Yin had deliberately hidden his true strength when filling out the form. Teacher who expressed regret that the youth had great talent but no predisposition to cultivation. The protagonist had already decided that because it was not easy to reach the 5th layer of the moon realm at the age of 18, his potential was limited. But then the balloon began to burn yellow. Teacher who realized that he was wrong. The youth had the potential of the sun realm. The genius class finally had a student. The teacher kept saying that only the 1st layer of the sun realm didn't matter, but he was in a hurry because the ball hadn't finished its action yet and showed the 6th layer of the sun realm. The men were shocked by the possibility of a 6th layer of the sun realm. After all, including the academy, there hadn't been such a thing for 500 years. They were happy that Tianyuan would reward them, and they would have a relationship with a future sun realm cultivator. But young King Yin's hand was still on the precious pearl, which continued to shine, eventually exploding. The teachers recognized the young man as a genius who could only be met once every few thousand years. Yun Qingyan asked why the men froze. It was time to announce the results of the second round. One of the teachers confirmed that if such a genius couldn't pass the exam, then no one in the world could qualify for it. The man next to him apologized for their attitude. Teacher who was genuinely happy that he was able to find such a talent. But they stopped him, asking him if he wanted to accept Yun Qingyan as his disciple. Hu Desheng became angry, asking the same question back and saying that they could only dream of such a disciple with their cultivation. The teacher wasn't sure if the dean of the academy had such qualifications. One of the teachers suggested that even though they couldn't accept him as a student, they could give him some advice while he was still developing. This thought was continued by Hu Desheng, saying that in the future they could brag about their help to Yun Qingyan in cultivation. One of the teachers, delighted by this, asked Hu to let him give a couple of tips to the main character. The man asked Yun Qingyan to show him what technique he was practicing, and if there were any shortcomings, he wanted to personally point them out to the young man. The guy was perplexed. Yun Qingyan asked if the man addressing him was injured more than 10 years ago. And now, when Master was fighting at full strength, bursts of pain like mosquito bites would come from his spiritual sea. The fashion master continued that back then, his spiritual sea was damaged, but no action was taken. The teacher didn't understand how the young man found out about this. He said that he could not only find out, but also heal, only when he promised to do one thing for the guy in the future. The main character reassured the man, saying that he would not force him to do anything against his own principles. The man agreed to this. Others were puzzled. The chapter begins with a punch from the main character. He said that when the man was injured, his blood dipped into the spiritual sea, and years later it turned into poison. Yun Qingyan pointed out that Master should be happy to see them, because not only would he lose his spirit sea, but he might also die. The man, having taken the blow, did not object and guaranteed his help in the future. Hu Desheng noted the protagonist's medical skills. He was able to understand the condition just by looking at it and isolate it with one palm. Yun Qingyan asked his pet if he was good at medicine, and teacher Hu asked if he wanted to share some advice. The man confirmed this, saying that he had lived for many years, and his vision and experience were richer than the main characters. Yun Qingyan was upset because of the words about great vision and experience. He noticed that the teacher was confident and had excellent eyesight, but he wondered why the man's spiritual body had been causing him searing pain every night since last month. Hu Desheng didn't understand how he knew such a thing, but he assumed that it was a high level of medical skills. The main character threw up his hands, saying that the man didn't have a disease, but a problem in cultivation. He clarified whether he had swallowed the 500-year-old elixir. Teacher Hu was struck by the awareness. It was easy for the main character to see such a thing. He could cure Hu Desheng as well as Lang Yan, but he asked him to do one thing in the future when it was needed. The man was ready to do not just one, but 10 things at once for help with the problem. The main character convinced that this is not necessary, and clarified that the thing will not go against the principles of Hu Desheng. The young man threw a punch at the teacher. Master Hu began to smell terrible to those around him who didn't understand what was going on. The man tried to stop, but his body wouldn't listen. The main character has completed his actions, and then the gases blocked in the master's spiritual sea disappeared. Yun Qingyan struck 17 times with his palm and released gases. The 500-year-old elixir that the man had swallowed was too strong, and the body couldn't handle processing Kai, causing excess gases to accumulate in the spiritual sea. Over time, they became highly toxic, paralyzing the body and killing it. One of the teachers noticed that the main character had unlimited potential and excellent medical skills. The hero was considered a capable person. Yun Qingyan wanted to avoid flattery and get straight to the point. He asked if he could be considered a student of Tianyuan Academy after passing 2 rounds of the exam. The chapter begins with Qingyan and one of the teachers taking the shortest route to the genius class. They were several miles ahead, so the man volunteered to explain what the genius class was like and what position it held in Tianyuan Academy. There were only 69 students in the genius class, where 90% were geniuses and the remaining 10% were the best. Furthermore, the youngest disciples were over 20 years old, and the weakest disciple was in the moon realm. Each student of the genius class received 10 times more resources than ordinary students. In addition, there were competitions every 2 months where 3 leaders got a chance to enter the Lotus Fire Tower. The Lotus Fire Tower was a sacred place for cultivation in Tianyuan Academy. It was covered in fire all year round, but the cultivation speed there was 10 times faster than outside. Furthermore, the practitioners in the Lotus Fire Tower didn't encounter any barriers during cultivation. Many of the teachers and students who encountered the barrier were willing to pay a high price to break through to the Sun Realm stage. The main character went over the facts about the tower in his head and thought that the essence of the Blue Lotus Fire was located there. Yun Qingyan asked where the Lotus Fire Tower was located. The man replied that such an important place was located in the deepest part of the academy, and the deputy dean, who was at the 9th layer of the moon realm, was standing guard over it. The main character reflected on what was said. Although he could use the scabbard of the heavenly sword in battle, it would exhaust his soul. If the guards spot him, he will be captured. It was too risky. It was impossible to break through. The man turned to the young man who refused the instructions of 2 teachers to ask about the acceptance of instructions on his part. The main character noticed that the man wasn't qualified to teach him. The teacher continued that he wouldn't have the opportunity to give instructions in the future, but right now, the youth was still growing up. The man asked to point out one of his problems, as in the case of two other teachers, if the main character really did not want to be taught. Inwardly, Master thought that he hadn't taken any elixirs in the past 2 years, and he hadn't suffered any serious injuries in the past 10 years. He was also diligent and careful in his practice and didn't make any mistakes. The man mused. Even if Yun King-in was very strong, he wouldn't be able to detect any problems with him. For his arrogance, the teacher wanted to teach the young man a lesson. The main character asked why he had to point out problems. He wanted to show respect to the 3 teachers, but he didn't think that he was such an arrogant person. Yun King-in noticed that he was almost 50 years old, and was only at the 6th layer of the moon realm. He really didn't know why the teacher thought he could instruct. If the youth was one, then he would never try to mentor those who are several times more talented than him. The teacher was apologizing for his behavior. Yun King-in still decided to tell him because of the man's kindness that Master wasn't poisoned and didn't have any problems in cultivation, but he had been stuck in the 6th layer of the moon realm for at least 7 years. The teacher wondered how the young man had seen this. Inwardly, the man reflected that some geniuses could identify the problems of ordinary martial artists at a glance and instruct others with just a few words. Yun King-in might have been one of those masters. The main character continued that the teacher's situation was similar to that of an older member of his family. He also pursued physical and psychological peace of mind, but refused to develop martial arts. He didn't know how much the precious pearl appreciated the man's potential, but if he continued to practice in the same way, then he would never advance past the 6th layer of the moon realm. The essence of training was to combine practice with rest. Overwork is harmful, and lack of rest is dangerous. The man understood that. Yun King-in sped up due to the darkness. The heroes came to the bushes from behind which the island, a treasure of Feng Shui, was visible. The teacher warned that ahead was Huzin Island, where the genius class is located. It had to be reached by boat. Yun King-in hoped that the genius class wouldn't disappoint him. The heroes went ashore. The teacher asked if the main character noticed the unusual nature of the lake. Yun King-in replied that there were hundreds of ferocious creatures of the moon realm living under the lake. There was even a Moon Realm Layer 9 beast on the island, suppressing others with compulsion, causing their boat to not be torn apart as soon as they hit the water. The man was surprised by such knowledge. At the bottom of the lake, there was a Moon Realm Layer 9 beast that was the Deccan's contact beast, the Ice Spirit Serpent. The teacher decided that the main character might not understand him, so he suggested that we continue on our way. He noted that beyond the mist, there was a class of true geniuses ahead. The genius class used the best training resources of the Star Academy, but it also faced intense competition. They included even the daily necessities of life. The 51 students who trained at the Big Tree were the ones who were ranked 18th in the genius class in the past. They had to live, practice, eat, and even sleep in the open air by a large tree. They could only eat raw food. The man, paying attention to the tents, said that they were made of the fur of a 3-legged leopard. This material was hard to cut with a normal sword, but it gave off a feeling of warmth in winter and coolness in summer. The tent could accommodate 10 students from grades 9 to 18, who received a cooked meal every day, although without seasoning. There were also houses made of meteorite, which reduced the risk of fire. There were 5 people living in the houses. Their daily life was taken care of by a special housewife, and 3 meals a day could be chosen according to their taste. As for the 3 people living in independent mansions, they were the very best in the genius class. Each had 3 beautiful young maids. Each dish is Moon Realm beast meat, as well as soup made from 100-year-old elixir. And in the Star Academy, these 3 were referred to as the 3 saints. The teacher said that King Yan had just joined the class, and it would be hard for him under this tree at first. And now the man was going to go to the dean's office. The main character's place of residence will be determined after consultation with the dean and vice dean. And the teacher advised not to talk about their potential to others, because geniuses are arrogant, and the status of the main character will become hateful for them. But there was no need to hold back if necessary. The genius class was a place where strength was respected, and in order to avoid bullying, one had to speak forcefully. The man finally wanted to say that competition was encouraged in the class, but there should not be dead and disabled people. The intruder would lose everything and be kicked out of the academy. The teacher left to break the news to the dean. The main character thought that it was better to be obedient and not make him angry. Yun King-yan was approached, saying that an 18-year-old at the 9th layer of the Star Realm was able to enter their genius class. Someone said that such people have no place in this class. Another accused the teachers of incompetence, and remarked that if the students from the houses were not in training, they would have taught the main character a lesson when they saw him. There were those who were determined to personally teach Yun King-yan a lesson as long as he didn't want to leave the classroom. This angered the hero. The action shifted to the Lotus Fire Tower. The teacher who came was telling the dean that they had accepted a person with a potential that exceeded the innate soul realm into the class. The dean asked how they realized that the youth surpassed the innate soul realm, to which he was told that the pearl did not determine potential, it exploded. And the main character, in the opinion of the man, could be those people about whom the dean spoke earlier. Yun King-yan instructed him. The dean asked what he had said. The teacher answered about overwork and rest. After asking again, the dean realized that the greatest truths were the simplest. Having been fired up with power and surprised the teacher with this, the dean asked to bring the main character in a month because he had the opportunity to break through. The chapter begins with the fact that the main character was crowded with people who decided who would teach the little brother on the 9th layer of the Kingdom of Stars their rules. The choice fell on Zhu Meng. It was his hobby that couldn't be taken away. The chosen one addressed the newcomer, allowing the main character to call him Uncle Meng. He handed him a jug of his own excrement, asking sarcastically for help pouring it out. Young Qingyan was angry and asked the local bully again. Someone in the crowd remembered that the former rookie Zhu Meng had also forced him to pour out his own excrement. The guy started a fight, eventually lost, and was forced to drink everything. The main character was thinking that Zhu Meng was really arrogant. He wasn't even a student of the academy, but he was relying on his master who lives in the mansion. He not only bullied the new students, but also the weak ones among us. Zhu Meng continued to push and gave the choice of pouring out the slop or drinking it. Young Qingyan heard everything. He said that the guy in front of him was just a subordinate and wasn't a student of the Starry Sky Academy, which meant he wasn't protected by the rules. The main character hit the servant. The crowd laughed, wondering how Young Qingyan, being at the 9th layer of the Star Realm, had thrown Zhu Meng away. Some speculated that the newcomer was a second-class genius, just like those who lived in mansions. Someone in the crowd replied that Zhu Meng was just a servant. It was no surprise that he lost. It was fun for him to need hard bones instead of soft persimmons. Young Qingyan wasn't satisfied that he was just defeated after being humiliated like this. He had to use his life as a gift. The crowd started to get excited, wondering if the newcomer wanted to kill the servant. Someone said that there could be no deaths or serious injuries in the competition, but only between students, which means that killing a servant would not be punished. Another pointed out that if Young Qingyan actually killed Zhu Meng, there would be serious consequences. The servant called the newcomer names, saying that because of the murder, he would have to deal with Mr. Wang Chan, who the newcomer didn't know was at the 3rd layer of the Moon Realm and was second in the genius class. The main character said that if he had asked him for mercy, his life would have been spared, but the servant continued to threaten. It could have been forgiven, but Young Qingyan hated being threatened. The youth hit Zhu Meng, killing him. Addressing the pet, the main character said that this was exactly what he was going to do, so they could find the essence of the Blue Lotus fire. After all, this was the main purpose of the trip. The newcomer was addressed from the crowd, saying that he wanted to die because he had killed Wang Chang's servant. The main character chuckled in his mind that it wasn't enough to kill a chicken. As a climax, I had to add another one. The chapter begins with the fact that the main character and his retinue were approached by one of the students of the genius class. He knew that Young King was just standing up for himself, but Zhu Meng was only a slave and was killed. The main character was wondering what the Starry Sky Academy member was going to do. He was going to be fair. The crowd didn't understand why Song Tong was going to stand up for Zhu Meng. Someone replied that Zhu Meng was a servant of Wang Chang, and Song Tong was going to help him. After all, he had joined Wang Chan's group a few months ago. Another added that not only Sun Tong, but many of them also had personal connections. The main character reflected that the genius class turned out to be much more confusing. If he wanted to make an example of it, he should have tried harder. Song Tong continued, saying that first Young Qingyan would go with him to Wang Chang and apologize. If he forgave him, the situation would be settled. But if there is no forgiveness, the newcomer will be punished by it. The main character chuckled. He suggested that if Song Tong bowed down and asked for forgiveness now, then he would consider not destroying his cultivation. This angered Sun Tong. He called the guy crazy and asked him not to blame him, but he was interrupted and grabbed by the throat by the main character. He asked again about the guilt, began to tell one secret, seeing the distorted face of the student. When Young Qingyan was at the 8th layer of the Star Realm, he could already kill the 6th layer of the Moon Realm. The protagonist decided that since they were members of the same academy, he was only going to destroy Song Tong's cultivation. After dealing with him, Young Qingyan addressed the crowd. The students were horrified that the newcomer had taken Song Tong's cultivation away. Even those who lived in mansions were afraid to break the rules of the genius class. The main character, in their opinion, acted recklessly. Suddenly, the guardian beast of the genius class, the ice spirit serpent, woke up. This was due to a newbie breaking the rules. Young Qingyan speculated that the beast had a strong aura. If he reached innate spirit cultivation, then he could transform into a dragon. Dealing with him was difficult for the hero. When he saw the animal completely, he recognized it as a spirit beast of the 9th layer of the Moon Realm that lived at the bottom of the lake. The creature was communicating with the dean, drawing him directly into its mind. The snake was telling the master that someone from the genius class was causing trouble, killing a servant and destroying another disciple's cultivation. The dean gave permission to solve such things without his presence, but the creature said it couldn't see the killer, and the killer was still emitting a diffused stream of air that made the beast flinch. The killer was Young Qingyan. The chapter begins with the dean telling a beast on the verge of breaking through not to worry about a newcomer. It was up to the vice dean, Liu Han, to deal with this. The dean considered Young Qingyan to be the key to bringing back the Starry Sky Academy's past greatness. He decided to protect it at all costs, so he was obliged to introduce a new rule of life and death. The serpent disappeared. leaving the protagonist thinking that the dean was wiser than he thought. The crowd of students didn't understand what had happened. Someone replied that the snake's status wasn't meant to be a showdown with an ordinary disciple. This meant that the academy would not act, and the situation should have already been reported to the dean. The students decided to deal with Yun Qingyan before the seniors arrived, so they could be rewarded with a lot of training resources. Suddenly, a disciple with a whip appeared, who was angry and exclaimed that the disciples weren't here for a showdown. This was a disgrace to their genius class. The newcomer turned to the main character, saying that he acted like a demon, destroying 2 brothers. Therefore, the academy should be cleared of him. Yun Qingyan noticed that they were always talking about killing him, but he wouldn't have done anything if he hadn't been bullied. The youth mentioned the rumors that everyone in the genius class was a dragon, but it turned out that they were mentally weak and had negligible skills. They weren't worthy of the word genius. The disciple called himself Fang Yang, the first one in the 3rd layer of the Moon Realm, and was going to hold up a newcomer for the seniors. The main character said that all his enemies here were fools, and since his anger had not yet been tempered, he asked not to be blamed for his cruelty. After taking the weapon from Fang Yang, King Yan said that he was so scared of his 3rd layer of the Moon Realm that he was about to kill him in front of all the students. He really admired the courage of fools like Fang Yang. Yun Qingyan said that he wasn't bullying them. They should have burned incense and worshipped the Buddha, but they provoked the main character. The newcomer had dealt with Fang Yang and was asking about himself from the crowd. If she was displeased with him, then the young man challenged her to battle. The main character asked why the students stopped laughing and decided to teach them a lesson on how to defend themselves. He began to fight with everyone. Some of the students were exclaiming that Yun Qingyan didn't dare to fight everyone, to which the young man replied that they tried to teach him a lesson themselves, so he was not going to stand on ceremony with them. He was whipping again. The students promised that if he stopped, they would help make amends. But if things continue like this, Yun Qingyan will not be saved. The elders responsible for following the rules will come, and it will all be over. The main character wasn't going to let them go so easily. He wanted to destroy their cultivation and hoped that it would reduce their arrogance in the future. The blows didn't stop. Yun Qingyan turned back, saying that after watching for a long time, it was worth showing up. The chapter begins with how the students who were watching near the houses laughed at what was happening. They had long wanted to deal with the minor disciples, but due to the rules, they couldn't do such a thing. Now these students of the Wang Chang group will receive more resources. The leader of this team turned to the main character, asking if he thought that he had become untouchable. But he was interrupted by a voice from the tent asking the newcomer's name. It was unexpected for the newcomer that King Yan had defeated all of these students. He watched the fight and realized that these disciples deserved to die, especially Zhu Meng's servant, who he would also kill if he were in the young man's position. Wang Chang turned to the disciple, asking him what he meant. Su Tu-tong replied that he called a spade a spade. He turned to Yun, saying that there was nothing to be afraid of, because according to the class rules, you can only challenge those who are of your rank or higher, and Wang Chang could only challenge those who lived in independent mansions, so even if they could hurt him, there was nothing he could do. Su Tu-tong wasn't lying when he offered to prove it. The disciple turned around and called Wang Chan a harsh name. The onlookers wondered what Wang Chang had done to provoke Su Tu-tong, who was not angry even if they lived in mansions. He was unlucky enough to be the one who angered Su Tu-tong. The man was talking to King Yun, asking if he believed him, and saying that he could also call the geniuses from the independent mansions. Wang Chang was angered by this, cursing Su Tu-tong, who retaliated with insults and promised that if they met outside the island, he would be able to defeat him with 3 slaps and 3 kicks for good health. Wang Chang asked if Su Tu-tong really thought he couldn't handle him. Approaching the main character, a disciple from the house said that the newcomer broke the rules and the elder would soon come for him. But if King Yun promised him one favor, then nothing would happen to his life. And the favor was killing Su Tu-tong. The main character got tired of this. He considered Wang Chan unreasonable and moved away from him. Su Tu-tong laughed at this and confirmed its unreasonableness. This angered Wang Chan, but he was distracted by the silhouette in the distance. It was Vice Dean Liu Han running across the water. The crowd of students thought that she had come here to deal with the newcomer. After confirming that the young man's name was Yun Qingyan, the girl expressed her joy at meeting someone like him. The crowd was perplexed as to why the Vice Dean didn't suppress the main character. She had been in charge of the prison for many years, and she had a short temper that didn't tolerate the slightest peep at her. She was very cruel to those who didn't follow the rules. Wang Chang began to ask why Liu Han didn't detain the violator of the rules. This kind of willfulness caught the Vice Dean's eye, and she slapped the student who dared to tell her what to do. The girl said that she came here to announce new rules. The genius class could now fight life and death battles. The conflict between the two could be resolved by themselves. The result was life and death. The chapter begins with the Vice Dean declaring Yun Qingyan to be the 2nd layer of the Moon Realm. Lang Yun, Hu Desheng, and others were punished for giving false information. The students were surprised by this and began to understand how he was able to deal with the students under the tree. Wang Chang began to address the Vice Dean, asking if he could challenge Su Tu-tong to a duel. He began to resent how he, who lived in the house, could challenge a student from the tent to a duel. If he had the guts, then he should have waited 3 years. If Su Tu-tong couldn't beat up Wang Chang without his mother knowing, he changed his last name to his. Wang Chang requested approval from the Vice Dean. The girl replied that the duel should have been voluntary on both sides. If Wang Chang wanted to challenge Su Tu-tong, then he had to ask for his consent. He laughed, saying that it was useless to try to persuade him to fight. If Wang Chang wanted to fight him, then he should have waited 3 years. Wang Chang was shouting at Su Tu-tong not to be so weak-willed. He swore that he would find a way to kill him and his family. Hiding behind the main character, Su Tu-tong began to make faces. Wang Chang began to address Yun Qingyan, saying that he wouldn't be able to laugh for long. He and everyone in his family will die a miserable death. The main character asked the student again. He repeated his words. Yun Qingyan suggested a duel of life and death. Wang Chang laughed and turned to the vice dean, telling her to notice who exactly had issued the challenge. He began to attack, saying that since he couldn't kill Su Tu-tong, he would kill the main character. Qingyan was able to kick Wang Chang easily. The students were amazed that Yun Qingyan, who according to Liu Han was at the 2nd layer of the Moon Realm, was able to easily kick Wang Chang, who was at the 3rd layer of the Moon Realm. Although the main character's cultivation is lower, but his physical and practical abilities must have been much higher. The vice dean reflected that the teachers had said that the youth's strength was at least a grade 1 talent. Now it seemed to her that the strength was at least 5. Liu Han decided to do everything she could to keep Yun Qingyan safe, and then perhaps they would be able to regain the glory that the academy had enjoyed 3,000 years ago. Now she understood why the dean had changed the rules because of him. There really was an incredible genius in this world. The vice dean asked the main character to let Wang Chan live, because he had an unusual origin. Yun Qingyan reflected that he didn't have enough power to cause trouble. Right now, he needed to save the academy's face. The newcomer hit Wang Chang, saying that for the sake of the vice dean, he only destroyed the opponent's Dan Tian and broke his spine. But if he dares to threaten the Yun family again, then his entire family will disappear with him. The chapter begins with the students watching the fight, seeing Wang Chan lose. They understood that the class of geniuses would soon change. Someone said that Yun Qingyan might be a level 3 genius who was born once every 100 years. Another said that the 3 saints were at least level 3 geniuses. Odin confirmed that their talent was the secret of the academy, and the genius class was created just for them. Every 3 to 5 days, they were sent on special assignments carefully selected by the dean. And the real reason for creating the genius class might be the training of the next dean of Starry Sky Academy. Of course, only those who lived in independent mansions could have sufficient qualifications. But the disciples assumed that another independent mansion would soon appear and Yun Qingyan would become its master. Picking up Wang Chan's clothes, the vice dean told the protagonist that it wasn't bad. Liu Han addressed the crowd, saying that if anyone said a word about what had happened, the dean would personally kill them. Everyone said they understood. The girl left, asking the main character not to disappoint the dean. The young man, using the power of his mind, wanted to ask Liu Han a personal question. She was surprised by this way of speaking, but she stayed. The main character was asking what the price was to enter the Tower of Fire. She understood why he had joined the academy. Qin Yan confirmed this, saying that he hid his true power to get into the Lotus Fire Tower and find an opportunity to break through to the Realm Peak. The vice dean replied that if it was anything else, the dean would definitely help, but not in the case of the Lotus Fire Tower. Not long ago, there was a mess, after which the tower was sealed. The girl continued that before, she would have been able to help the youth, but now that the Lotus Fire Tower was sealed from the outside world, one had to become a 4th saint to enter. The main character clarified that these are those who live in independent mansions. The vice dean confirmed it. The dean intended to help him become the 4th saint, but whether or not he would become one depended on his luck. If nothing happened, the hero would have his first task tomorrow. He had to prepare himself. Yun Qingyan chuckled that he hadn't heard the word task in a long time. Su Tu-tong turned to the protagonist, asking if he had communicated with the vice dean through the power of thoughts. If this was true, then Brother Yun might soon have his own independent mansion. The newcomer interrupted Su Tu-tong, asking if he really needed to be envious of such a person. After all, he had already reached the 4th layer of the Moon Realm, and his talent was no worse than Wang Chang, but for some reason, he remained in the tent. Su Tu-tong realized that he couldn't hide it from the newcomer. He said that he had insulted Yun Hai, and if his power was revealed, he would be killed. Yun Qingyan recognized from the name that this disciple was from the Yun family in the Imperial City. Su Tu-tong confirmed this by saying that he was one of the 3 saints who had the 6th layer of the Moon Realm and a level 4 talent. In the entire Starry Sky Academy, only 2 other saints, Yi Tian and Shan Guanyu, could compete with him. Su Tu-tong said that Brother Yun needed to calm down and shared that the reason why he provoked Yun Hai was similar to the reason for the newcomer. The dean was also watching the student from the tent. These 3 saints competing with each other were just killing outsiders. The disciple continued that Shan Guan was in his mansion and must have seen the entire battle, which meant that he would be the main character's first enemy. Su Tu-tong was sure that Yun Qingyan with his abilities could kill the 6th layer of the Moon Realm. When the time came, he would help him deal with Yun Hai. Su Tu-tong cheered on the main character. Shan Guan, who was watching, was thinking that he couldn't see Yun Qingyan's strength, so it wasn't surprising that Liu Han came to investigate. The saint, due to the absence of Yun Hai and Yi Tian, wanted to deal with the newcomer himself. He was sure that there would never be a 4 mansion in the genius class.